I want to learn to read, Kurapika said in a low voice. Then I can't teach you. The smile disappeared, and Roy said regretfully, actually, I'm just a trainee who has been practicing chanting for less than a year. Unlocking the Fujitora template. What Roy has learned still pays more attention to the cultivation of domineering and the development of fruit abilities. Recently, I tried to combine Nyen and domineering and found some ways. For example, armed sexual thought bomb, armed sexual thought line, combined with the 6 styles in the future, some other new moves may be developed. But obviously these moves are not suitable for Kurapika, but belong to Roy's system alone. Impossible. At this time, before Kurapika could speak, the red-nosed Captain Hayden Maxey stepped over, bowed and saluted Roy. Thank you for saving the Poseidon. I declare that you are qualified to land on Dolly Island. You don't need to answer questions. Roy looked at Hayden Maxey with a half-smile. Why don't you ask me why you want to be a hunter? No. Hayden Maxey was taken aback for a moment. He didn't expect that Roy's words would hit the exam content, and he smiled wryly. What difference does it make if you don't ask? With your strength, I can't stop you from going to the island. That's true. Roy touched his chin, his face suddenly pulled, and he stared at Hayden Maxey blindly, and said indifferently, I think you'd better ask. Otherwise I will report you to the Hunter Association for cheating. Favoring candidates is a violation of the fair, just and open competition principle of the exam. Did I hear you right? Report me? Maid. Are you sick? Hayden Maxey was stunned, and stared blankly at Roy, feeling that he was the farmer who was bitten by a snake after saving the snake. After a long time, he asked Roy with a dark face, why do you want to be a hunter? Roy was waiting for this moment, and Lightspeed replied, for money. As he spoke, he stretched out a hand, grabbed Hayden Maxey's shoulder, leaned closer, looked down at him and said, I remind you, no one can owe me Roy's money. Remember. No. Don't think that if you let me pass the test, I will accept your love. Tell you, it's impossible. My fish money can't be less. Good guy, co-author. It doesn't matter if you pass the exam, selling fish is the most important thing, right? Kurapika stood aside, looked at Roy suspiciously, very suspicious. I can't teach, as just a nonsense of the other party. The reason why he doesn't teach is because he has no advance payment. Hayden Maxey was outraged. Gus, check out the fish. Give him the money now. Jesus. Jess. Gus pushed his way through the crowd, bumping into Leorio inadvertently. The uncle was carrying the briefcase, as if he didn't realize it. He stared straight at Roy with golden eyes. What is a man of God? This is the man of God. Money clears the way, we are not alone. I learned it. If he asks me later, I'll say the same. Leorio slapped Gon across the face. See, learn, don't tell me I didn't warn you. You hit me on the head again. Gon stared at Leorio aggrievedly. But, I came to find my father. What is my father and your father? Qian is the father. Leorio glared at Gon. A child cannot be taught. You're good. Roy watched Gus get out of the warehouse. He patted Hayden Maxey on the shoulder with satisfaction and said, the person I respect the most in my life is a cheerful person like you. With that said, he picked up the stick knife again and started fishing. Seeing this, Hayden Maxey's red nose turned into a black nose. He couldn't bear it anymore, snorted coldly, and left angrily. Bang! The door of the captain's cabin was slammed shut. Look at this posture. If the boat does not go to the island, it is impossible to see the captain again. That's good too, stealing half a day's leisure. Roy can also enjoy the experience of fishing liver with peace of mind, waiting for the harvest of rice. Why not do it? Of course, it would be even better if a certain stubborn blonde boy could not pester him. You set a price. Kurapika also understood, and said straight to the point. How much money do I need to ask you to teach me? Priceless. Roy turned his back to Kurapika, looking at the endless sea, and said leisurely, you are too weak now. If you want to get revenge on the spider, let's wait until you can pass the hunter test and get the hunter license. Kurapika's pupils shrank, and the pupils suddenly ignited 2 red fires, and said hoarsely, you really know Phantom Troop. From the moment he got on the boat, he was told, eyes, and now he heard it with his own ears. Kurapika finally confirmed that the other party had contact with Phantom Troop. It's just. It can't be regarded as knowing. Roy said blankly, I'm not interested in these rats in the gutter. It just happened to discount 3 of their legs. You did that thing in Davia's library? Kurapika fried Harry. No one in this world cares more about Phantom Troop than he does. The famous cartoonist Mr. Tianwei's autograph session has been attacked by criminals, and rumors have already spread. If it weren't for the hunter test coming soon, Kurapika would have left for Davia for a field investigation. It's just that I didn't expect to meet the righteous master here. The so-called 3 legs correspond to Uvajin, Nobunaga, Shizuku. No wonder there were no casualties in the library incident, so you were there. After Kurapika's analysis, he suddenly realized. Being able to restore the truth of the matter through Roy's simple sentence is worthy of being the intellectual responsibility of the protagonist group. Ah, hearing what you said, I remembered. Damn, blind brother, you must be Mr. Tianwei, right? An excited voice suddenly came from among the candidates. I said, I see you are so familiar, I didn't expect you to come here. Who is this? Dao Sensei what? Is he famous? There was commotion in the crowd. Of course, it's more than famous. He is the Mr. Tianwei who painted The Pirate King, the owner of the autograph session that was broadcast on the news a while ago. Worry, is it true or not? No wonder, no wonder. I said, when did Phantom Troop become so rubbish, raiding a signing event without causing any casualties? It's not like their style at all. Dare to love because the blind brother is here. Hiss. In this way, none of the 3 Phantom Troops have beaten a blind brother, so don't be too reasonable. The hustle and bustle is so loud. What Pirate King? What Phantom Troops? Directly confused Gon. The poor child was so well protected by Mito since she was a child, staring at a pair of dazed eyes, watching the adults all around spitting and talking wildly. She quietly tugged on Leorio's sleeve. Hey, Leorio, the pirate, what is wrong? The latest and hottest manga, it's so good. Leorio looked at Roy and was also shocked. He didn't expect Mr. Tianwei to be blind in reality, so he patiently popularized it with Gon. Only then did Gon understand. His big eyes flickered at Roy, and he said, 4 mouths, 1. It's really powerful. Leorio pushed the sunglasses on the bridge of his nose, looked at Roy with piercing eyes, and sighed silently in his heart. Hey, it's okay to be strong, it's okay to be handsome, it's okay to be handsome, and he can draw comics. Compared to such a person, I might as well reincarnate. Once the strong sense of despair poured in, it could never go away. And there were many fans of Roy among the candidates. After Roy's identity was exposed, they frantically rushed over and directly squeezed Kurapika out. The others looked at each other in blank dismay. Although they hadn't read the manga, they had heard of the name, Pirate King, to some extent, and they followed suit. As a result, Roy was surrounded by 3 floors inside and 3 floors outside. Are you satisfied now? Roy turned his head and glanced at Kurapika, never thinking that it would be so difficult to experience a quiet fishing experience. As soon as the cane was put away, he didn't pretend at all, and went straight to the showdown, and a signing session was held on the spot. For the sake of everyone participating in the hunter test at the same time, I will give you a discount. A signature is 100,000 yuan, a group photo is 300,000 yuan, no expiration date. Wu Sensei Tianwei is so kind, I'm crying to death, don't fight me. I want to take away the blood of teacher Tianwei. The fan who first recognized Roy was as excited as a child. To have this kind of fans, Roy is not to mention how satisfied, but you have to take my blood, right? Very well, you have been kicked out of the organization. With a dark face, Roy said directly, next. It's my turn. Mr. Tianwei, we are willing to spend 10 million yuan to buy your autograph as an apology for our previous collision with you. At this time, the people who followed the nose ring man and surrounded Roy came out more and more, and bent slightly towards Roy. Seeing this, Roy frowned. I originally wanted each of you to have a hand. 2,000. We are willing to pay 20 million. Is that so? Roy frowned slightly. 1 hand is fine, just replace it with 1 finger. 30 million. Roy frowned, helped them up personally, and smiled amiably. Oh, they are all in the same period. Why are you so out of touch? Forget it. Thank you, teacher Tianwei. Several people breathed a sigh of relief. Roy smiled happily. Should. Received the money and continued to greet the next fan. Crowd outside. Gon stood on tiptoe and couldn't reach Roy, so he poked Leorio. Hey, Leorio, why don't you go? Aren't you also a fan of Uncle? Leorio's expression turned embarrassing. Which pot is not opened for a dead child? Which pot is not to be lifted, right? I usually prostitute for nothing. How dare I go up there? If blind brother finds out about this, why not chop me up? Speak more if you can speak. No one will think you are dumb. Leorio glared at Gon angrily, snorted, and turned his face away. Gon. She curled her lips. You didn't pull the kingfish. Boom. What did you say? Oops, you hit me on the head again. One big and one small made a fuss, chasing each other around the mast. At the corner, only Kurapika, who was squeezed out of the encirclement, was left, hugging herself silently. I couldn't help feeling a strong sense of frustration in my heart. Thinking that the enemy he was chasing after was not the enemy of others, once the word, trash, appeared, it couldn't be lingered. However, people will grow. Pain will not be forgotten, but healed. Roy noticed Kurapika's loss, just took a look, and then took his gaze back. Again, he has no obligation to help the other party for free, not to mention, Roy has not experienced this feeling. The good big brother, Il-Fan, who played him when he was young, didn't give him a good look. He was perverted like him, but he made Roy suffer a lot. Fortunately, this time the hunter test, Kahlua and Il-Fans are all there. The former is debt collection, and the latter is also debt collection. Woo! The loud whistle of the ship blows. After several days of voyage, the Poseidon finally arrived at Dolly Island after going through bumps. The anchor was lowered, the ship was fixed, the gangway was lowered, and qualified candidates stepped off the ship one after another. Leorio, Gon, Kurapika are among them. Up front is Roy. Maybe it was out of awe, or maybe it was out of respect for him. Teacher Tianwei, blind brother, didn't move. No one dared to get off the boat before him. Hee. Thanks to the generous gift from the captain, I have had a happy journey. I raised my hand and took a few bank cards thrown by the old captain with a red nose. Roy flipped his bank card into his pocket, and said to Hayden Maxey with a smile, after the exam, I will go to the bank. If the amount is wrong, maybe I will come to visit again. It's hard to say exactly how to visit. Hayden Maxey's face turned black, and I followed suit, and quickly invited Roy off the boat. Go slowly, don't see you, never see you again. Mada, it's not because I can't beat you, otherwise I will judge you as unqualified. Haha, if that's the case, goodbye. Roy turned his blind eyes around, and walked down the gangway along the deck with a stick and knife in his hand. Uncle, wait for me. Gon bowed to Hayden Maxey and said, Arigato. Following Roy's example, he thanked him, waved his hand, and ran down the gangway following Roy's back. The good brothers left. Leorio and Kurapika glanced at each other, followed closely behind, glanced at the Poseidon behind them, nodded to Hayden Maxey, and strode up to follow. Same as the original work, after the duel, the two settled their suspicions and their friendship greatly increased. Hey, see that cedar tree on the top of the mountain? Go straight in that direction and you will arrive at the test site. Seeing the four people leave, Hayden Maxey did not know which muscle was cramping, and reminded Roy loudly. When he came back to his senses, he really wanted to slap himself and call himself cheap. But his kind heart betrayed his mouth. Nah. Roy waved his back to Hayden Maxey without looking back. Look, turned to the mountain. The tall fir trees were clearly visible, and the voices of some monsters could be faintly heard. It's the smell of a fox. What's the smell? Gon followed Roy and looked around. His nose moved, and he looked at Roy in puzzlement and said, There are no foxes? No? Roy smiled, and said meaningfully, It may be that your nose is out of order, but I can smell it, and there are 4 more. Gon rubbed his nose vigorously, saw Roy walking away, hurriedly followed, and said loudly, Uncle, my nose is fine, maybe you smelled it wrong. Hee. Maybe. Roy smiled noncommittally, and walked straight past the public road map. Hey, Mr. Tianwei, you seem to be going in the wrong direction. Leorio hurried up with his briefcase. The direction leading to Saba City is reversed. We should go take the bus. Then go and sit down. Roy continued walking towards the fir tree without looking back. He's right. At this moment, a man with a double stick came out from the corner and blocked the way of several people. The bus to Saba City is about to leave. The express bus is standing over there. Who are you? Leorio pulled down his glasses and looked the man up and down. The man said enthusiastically, My name is Matthew, and I am a candidate for the hunter test just like you. Please advise me a lot. As he said that, Matthew stretched out a friendly hand to Gon. Gon. Did you smell a bad smell this time? Being blocked, Roy suddenly pinched his nose. Gon was stunned, and sniffed carefully. No, Uncle, I didn't smell it. Tisk. It's so obvious that you didn't smell it, and you said that your nose is fine. Let me kindly remind you. This smell is unique to bad guys. Without further ado, Roy pushed Matthew away in disgust, and continued to approach the cedar tree with a staff knife. Let. It stinks. Matthew. There were cross veins on his forehead. He opened his mouth and was about to curse, but Leorio hooked his shoulders. Don't be angry, I'll take the bus with you. Gon. Kurapika, how about you? When Leorio turned his head, Gon ran directly after Roy, and he looked at Kurapika speechlessly. Kurapika shrugged and said directly, I trust the judgment of Tianwei and the captain. If you want to take a car, go and sit by yourself. Okay. Leorio said helplessly to Matthew. Let's go to the car. Matthew gritted his teeth secretly. Silly bee. Who the hell is going to take the car with you? Shook his shoulders and shook Leorio's shoulders, and quickly ran 2 steps to catch up with Roy. Hey, blind man, I don't mean any harm. Matthew suppressed his anger and smiled at Roy. There are many wild beasts in the mountains, you can't see them, and your legs and feet must be inconvenient. Why take a long detour? It's better to take a bus. Blind man. Call me Stinky, see if I don't kill you. Oh? Roy paused, his blind eyes lit up. Yes, you reminded me of one thing. My legs and feet are really inconvenient, can you help me? God TM legs are inconvenient. Uncle, do you know what you were talking about? Gon stared at a pair of innocent big eyes, and there was a question mark visible to the naked eye on the hedgehog's head. Seeing Roy's pleading smile from behind, Kurapika and Leorio felt their hearts tighten and goosebumps popped out. The experience of the old captain being cheated is still vivid in my mind. People on board can't see Roy's smile. When he smiled, people thought of a word. Life and death are unpredictable, of course. Seeing that the other party was baited, Matthew patted his chest and assured, Tell me, how can I help you? Do you want me to help you take the bus? Roy shook his head. No, I'm motion sick. Of course, it would be nice if there was a horse to carry me. There is a ghost horse in the city. A black line appeared on Matthew's forehead. This horse is not easy to find. Who said that, aren't you? Roy looked at Matthew jokingly. Matthew, you are the one with the most horse present. You are not a horse. Who is a horse? Are you F***king kidding me? Matthew finally couldn't hold it back anymore, got angry, and pulled out his double sticks with a clang. Yo, it's within the reach of digging, Roy sneered, and flew out an armed sex whip, with shaking hands, hooked Matthew's neck, pulled him lightly, and dragged him to the ground. Then he turned over and jumped, sat on Matthew's back, and hit his ass with a whip. Run horse. Drive. You F***king. Matthew got up and was about to roll Roy down, but was horrified to find that his body seemed to have lost contact with him. It turned out to be weird. Like a horse, lying on the ground, using both hands and feet, ran towards the depths of the forest. Damn it. What did you do to me? Matthew panicked. When the hell would he be someone else's cow or horse, let alone a real horse? Don't yell, it's so noisy. An invisible thread of thought directly sewed up Matthew's mouth, and inside his body, countless threads of thought replaced his muscle fibers, forcing he imitated the horse and ran away. These reading lines are the result of Roy's fishing at sea for so many days, and they are similar to the reading nails of Yie fans. The difference is that if Roy wants to, he can coat the Nianxian with a layer of armed domineering or even domineering color, so that it has more characteristics. I knew it would be like this. Seeing Matthew running into the forest with Roy on his back, Kurapika and Leorio looked at each other. Now you still insist on taking the bus? Kurapika looked at Leorio amusedly. Leorio picked up the briefcase and followed Gon's ass, chasing in the direction Roy left. Matthew won't go, I'll just sit there and go. Kurapika pursed his lips and smiled, here we come, and quickly chased after him. Oh, your horse is very weak. Halfway through the journey, Matthew lay on his stomach, limp on the ground like a dead dog. After exhausting his last sliver of strength, if he walks a little further, he will be able to reach the next pass, a quiz and answer town. Even through the mottled leaves, Roy could already feel the cold wind blowing from the desolate town. Choose one heartbeat quiz? Mother and girlfriend? It's really bad enough. Roy walked down from Matthew leaning on a stick knife, suddenly felt a chill on his ankle, and lowered his head to look. Matthew grabbed his feet with difficulty, and begged. Please, don't leave me here, there are monsters in the forest, they will eat me. Are you afraid now? Roy raised his foot and shook Matthew away, and walked towards the town expressionlessly. Don't worry, I'm here, no beast dares to be presumptuous. Matthew roared with all his strength, How can you be sure? Roy smiled. Because I am the most vicious beast here. The title, King's Foundation, shines. Even if Roy doesn't release the overlord arrogance, the beast can still detect Roy's existence through instinct. Uncle is right. Gon jumped from a tree with Kurapika and Leorio at his side. Tisk. This guy is too miserable. Leorio couldn't help but click his tongue when he saw Matthew's miserable state. Sympathy came up, and he asked, "Do you want to take this guy? Just let him rest here." Seeing that Roy was about to disappear, Gon walked away. Matthew shouted with all his strength, Don't leave me alone, or I will really be eaten by monsters." This. Leorio looked at Kurapika, who frowned and didn't speak. He looked at Gon again. Gon shook his head, and said to Matthew, "No. The beasts in the forest told me they dare not come near here. One or two are like this." Matthew wanted to vomit blood angrily. "How can you be sure?" "Because they are afraid of Uncle," Gon said seriously. "You can rest here." Saying that, he chased Roy's back and ran out without looking back. It's really possible. That guy Tiano is a man who can crush even a storm, and it seems reasonable that the beast would be afraid. Leorio touched his chin. "Hey, Gon, wait for me. The wind was blowing under your feet, and you quickly followed." Kurapika glanced at Matthew and shook his head. The poor man must have something to hate. What a bad thing to do, insist on provoking Roy. The result can be imagined. Plop, 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 plop. The sky is blue. The clouds are white. The trees are green, but the city is barren. After leaving the forest and stepping into a desolate town, the soles of the shoes rubbing against the stone road made a crisp sound. Roy finally walked out of the forest with 3 followers. Looking around, in the dilapidated town, the streets and alleys are empty, very strange. Are there people living in such a desolate place? Leorio looked around with his beloved briefcase in his hand. Mottled walls. Weed-covered flagstone roads. Creaking when the wind blows, staring at the crumbling broken windows. I just feel the coolness along the soles of the feet and rushing straight to the sky. It's so dark that it doesn't penetrate. Yes, there are quite a few people. Isn't that right, Uncle? Gon came to stand beside Roy, and the dog's nose was on the line, smelling a lot of breath. Indeed, don't be careless. Leorio, can't you hear the sound of breathing inside? Kurapika gave Leorio a blank look, and looked at the tall man, but he was a brute with 5 senses disabled. A total of 37 people. Roy turned his blind eyes, and rushed out with a sense of knowledge, taking a panoramic view of the town, including its people and appearance, at a glance. And just at the moment when his voice fell, the voice of Shishijuelsuo came out from all directions. Iron and cotton are both a ton, which one is heavier? It's iron. Wrong, they are the same weight, both are 1 ton. Which one is older, brother or brother? The correct answer is no, because they are twin brothers. Huh? What kind of mess is this? Leorio was startled by the sudden voice, and hurriedly hugged his beloved briefcase, goosebumps popping out uncontrollably. However, no one answered him. Apart from these strange sounds, I could only vaguely hear some clothes rubbing or being blown by the wind. Aside, Gon and Kurapika hold their breath. Roy stood in front of them, with a faint sneer drawn at the corner of his mouth, and he glanced at the entrance of the alley unintentionally. One of the teeth in the shadow is almost gone, and only 2 naked old women are left. The old woman was shocked. Unexpectedly, the blind examinee saw her position at a glance and counted the children. She led one by one. Come out. It's just unbelievable. Sure enough, the other party has also awakened, Nyen. Besides, circle. The old woman couldn't think of any other possibilities. But she ignored that some people are born with extraordinary talents, are friendly to nature, and are particularly sensitive to breath, such as Jin from the R&F family and his son. Gon. Go, find her. Roy closed the door and let Dog. Gon ran to the alley on his short legs, pointed at the old woman, and said, Obasan, I found you. Knowing that she had been exposed, the old woman smiled sinisterly. At this moment, dense footsteps sounded on the street, from messy to dense at first, attracting everyone's attention. I saw 20 or 30 children, in white coats, masks, and hair dyed in various colors came out and blocked the street. Count carefully, there are exactly 37 people. Is it so accurate? Kurapika glanced at Roy quietly. Roy gave him a half smile, glanced at him meaningfully, and said lightly, a reminder to you, silence is golden. After finishing speaking, he closed his eyes directly, leaned against the wall, and started fighting. After reading the original book, Roy naturally knows the answer. The real answer is that there is no answer. Speaking of interest, Roy looked at the old woman in front of him with great interest, and directly called up her panel. Name: Amy Woodland. Bone age: 74. Physique: 50. Normal person 10. Speed: 64. Normal person 10. Strength: 53. Normal person 10. Air capacity: 101. Normal person 10. Remarks: Aura nodes has been activated compared to the red-nosed Captain Hayden Maxey in the first level. This old woman named Amy Woodland is obviously much stronger. At the very least, one Amy is equal to two Haydens. It is conceivable that the subsequent assessors must be better than the other until Netero appears. Ahem. Why do you feel cold in your heart? After being swept away by Roy, the old woman felt as if her whole body was seen through, and she shuddered inexplicably. She glanced at the other party calmly. All the wrinkles on her face were squeezed into a ball, suppressing the throbbing in her heart. Leaning on a red bead crutch engraved with the Examiner mark, she separated from the crowd and walked out. If you want to get to the cedar tree on the top of the mountain, there is no other way but to go through the town. There are many beasts and monsters on the mountain road, so it's not easy to walk. Look, she also has the same mark as the captain. This is the old woman's voice, when Gon discovered her identity as an examiner. Kurapika looked at the mark and suddenly realized, so that's the case, this is also one of the gates of the hunter exam. Is this old woman the examiner? Leorio rolled his eyes irritably. When the old woman took her children and murmured plop, plop, repeatedly, I felt even more irritable. Obviously, a certain uncle surnamed Lay didn't listen to the words, silence is golden. Heartbeat, choose one of the two quizzes. Suddenly, the old woman let out a groan, showing her extraordinary beauty, which shocked both Leorio and Kurapika. Maid, who is not young, has a loud voice. Even Roy, who had prepared in advance, was taken aback by this old lady. The old lady didn't care about everyone's reaction at all, and continued. I will ask a question next, and I only have 5 seconds to think about it. If the answer is wrong, it means that you are not qualified. Then you have to give up becoming a hunter. And only answer the specified answer, all other answers are wrong. Hearing this rule, the irritable Leorio couldn't help it. Wait a minute. Do you want the four of us to answer the same question? Leorio, Gon, and Kurapika glanced at Roy indiscriminately at the same time. This scene was caught in the eyes of the old woman, and she thought, it seems that this blind man should be the backbone of these four people. That's right, isn't this faster? The old woman secretly remembered Roy's appearance, and said in a deep voice. Leorio was not happy when he heard it, and he and Kurapika picked each other up. If this guy gives the wrong answer, wouldn't I be implicated by him? Leorio pointed at Kurapika and said angrily. Kurapika smiled coldly and retorted. How is it possible? Of course the possibility of the opposite is so high that it makes me want to cry. Even so, the two had already worn a pair of pants with Gon. As for whether Roy was counted, Roy didn't want to know, let alone be interested. Close your eyes and calmly listen to the following and witness, the old woman asked the embarrassing question. Then Leorio was irritable. Gon didn't know how to answer. Kurapika received his own reminder, glanced at himself vaguely, and wanted to remind Gon and Leorio, but was stopped by the old woman again. Until Leorio couldn't bear to hit the old woman with a stick, just survived those 5 seconds. The old woman smiled and announced that all the staff were qualified. Then they opened their blind eyes and appreciated this boring farce. Let's go. The stick knife in his hand touched the ground, making a light ding. Roy tapped and walked towards the new door opened by the old woman. Oh. Leorio came to his senses and finally understood the meaning of silence is golden, that Roy reminded him in advance. Dare to. It turns out that Roy already knew the answer, no. Mad, he seems to have guessed the question beforehand, what a ghost. Leorio's eyes widened suddenly, and he watched Gon run in behind Roy's ass in a daze. It took a long time to come back to my senses, and I heard Kurapika sigh and say, if the other party is Tianwei, it seems that it is not unusual to do anything. Leorio, the two of us have to get used to this situation a lot. Yeah, Leorio nodded approvingly. He is a man who can cut through storms with a knife. As long as you know, let's go. Squeak. The new door slammed shut, and Kurapika and Leorio followed Gon and Roy and disappeared into the question and answer town. The old woman who was left alone stared at Shimon with all her children in a daze. Didi, Grandma, Grandpa Hayden from the Poseidon is calling. Hayden? Yo ho ho, that kid is fine, but he won't call me an old woman. Sure enough. The phone was connected, and the rough voice of the red-nosed Captain Hayden Maxey came out. Old woman, you're not dead yet. The corner of the old woman's eyes twitched. Thank you for your kindness, old lady, I am dying. I didn't die, I let you down, I'm really sorry. Haha. Hayden Maxey heard the run on the words and smiled indifferently. It's really. I thought that kid wasn't patient enough and couldn't help making things difficult for you. It seems that I was worrying too much. After finally sending away Roy, the god of plague, Hayden Maxey couldn't breathe because of heartache when he was mentioned again. Mad. The pension money at the bottom of the box almost made this kid cheat, so he simply sold the flying fish to get his blood back, otherwise. Maybe the rest of his life would depend on that kid. Yo ho ho, old lady, although I am old, I am not as weak as you think. At least, it's okay to teach you with one hand. The old woman's muddy eyes flashed. But if the boy you said refers to the blind man. No way, you really might not be able to hear the old woman's voice. The footsteps behind the stone gate gradually faded away. The old woman recalled Roy's inadvertent glance at him, and even though he was gone, her heart was still trembling. It seems that he has already cleared the level from you. Hayden Maxey was not surprised, and said with emotion, a man who can swing a knife to split the storm. It seems that nothing can stop him, and the vicious fox family is probably enough. Wait. What split the storm? Although the old woman is old, she is neither blind nor deaf. Please explain to me. Can't you understand the literal meaning? Hayden Maxey said indifferently. It was the blind man you mentioned who split the storm, comparable to sea god. You didn't see the scene at that time. I have been on the boat for so many years, and I have never seen such an outrageous person. I just came here and talked to you. Hayden Maxey told everything that happened that day. There was no sound on the other end of the phone. Only the sound of heavy breathing and heartbeat that gradually accelerated. Plop. 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 Jumping wildly. Amy Wolland was shocked. No wonder the other party could detect her position at a glance. With this strength, being round is no problem. But splitting the storm with one blow. If she hadn't known that Hayden Maxey was honest and reliable, the old woman would have scoffed and cursed, bullshit. Have you obtained his identity? The old woman took a deep breath to come back to her senses, and said in a deep voice, Hayden, such an outstanding genius, it's best to report to the superior. Of course I reported it to the higher-ups. Hayden Maxey smoked a newly bought pipe, and exhaled a smoke ring. Guess what the higher-ups said? How to say? The old woman pricked up her ears. Hearing Hayden Maxey take a puff of cigarette, said deeply, the higher-ups said they know. What's the matter? The old woman's heart was raised. The old woman curled her lips. Yo ho 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 ho. I thought the higher authorities paid more attention to it. Isn't this still the same as in previous years? Same. Hayden Maxey sneered, and said leisurely, it's the president who said that. Who do you think? Old woman. He opened his mouth, but was speechless. The weight of words depends on who says them. In the job hunter business, the crone has yet to see anyone who speaks as loudly as Netero. If the old woman's memory is not bad, I remember that he is the president's son, Master Byongda, who didn't have this kind of treatment back then. Bajonde Netero, Porter by Giganti, and Bisji Kruger are all the proud pillars of the Hunter Association. Although Jin has had the treatment of Netero. But he is as lazy as him. 160 days were either absent from work or on the way to absent from work. It's really shameful to say. Now. Hayden blew out a smoke ring and murmured in a low voice. Next, the phone fell into an eerie silence. No one speaks. After a while, Amy digested the shocking news, and couldn't help sighing. Since the president has come forward, it means that the kid's identity is not simple. What's his name? It is not easy for people to be curious when they are old and half of their body is buried in the soil. Roy Zoldyck. That's the author of the popular comic, Pirate King, Dao. What Pirate King, Tianwei's? The old woman didn't hear anything, she only noticed 3 words, Zoldyck. Sure enough, there is nothing worthy of fame. If it is the genius of the Zoldyck family, it seems that it is not difficult to understand that they can do this kind of thing. It's not difficult to understand. But if you knew that the other party was mediocre and was ignored by the family since childhood, maybe you wouldn't say that. Hayden Maxey took off his pipe and knocked it on the side of the boat. Besides, there are 3 Zoldykes here this time. Hey, I heard that each of them seems to be at odds with each other, but now it's a good show. Didn't 2 come? The old woman raised her eyebrows and said, That white-haired little boy named Kahlua, old lady, I just met him yesterday. No. It's just 3. Hayden Maxey narrowed his eyes and said, the boss of the Zoldyck family is also here, his alias, Gitteracker. No wonder the president pays so much attention to it, the old woman muttered. Hayden, I have a hunch that something big will happen to this hunter test. This. I have already felt it too. Hayden Maxey nodded approvingly, chatted with Amy Wooland for a while, and then hung up the phone. It was in the evening, and the endless sea suddenly rose up and the waves set off a huge wind and waves. Apparently, the storm is coming again. Oh, I see. I'll pay attention. Killa? He's here. Shall I take him home now? No? Okay. Bye now. Hunter's exam venue, a corner that is rarely visited by people. A man whose face was full of nails hung up the phone. Wei was a little absent-minded. He is dressed in green, with a strange blue mohawk hair. His skin is strange purple, his fingers stick out, his nails are as long and sharp as knives, his stiff face may be because it is full of nails, and he always keeps holding a smile. Gitteracker, the mysterious candidate number 301, no one knows his origin, only know. This guy may also be dangerous, because he is with a recognized pervert. Together candidate number 44, madman magician Hisoka. Ho, you are so heartbroken, Ilfan. The playing cards were spinning and flying in Hisoka's hand. The magician's hair stood up and he combed like an adult, with light makeup in the shape of teardrops and stars painted on his face, and big hearts and diamonds printed on his chest, just like others, unpredictable and capricious. Ye Fan didn't seem to hide his friend's intentions at all, and casually revealed a piece of news to him. I just received a call, my good-for-nothing brother is coming. You mean the Kahlua over there? Hisoka's eyebrows and eyes were curved, and the corners of his mouth curled up in a deep arc. His face looked weird and terrifying. He waved his hands exaggeratedly. No way, apples that are too tender will taste sour, of course. Then he paused, stuck out his tongue and licked his lips, obsessively, looked at Yi or me and said, if this is your request, even if it is sour, I will eat it. If you dare to touch him, I'll kill you. Ye fans didn't even look at Hisoka, as if they were saying something trivial. But the murderous aura that suddenly erupted from him was as thick as its essence, and it couldn't be dissipated at all. 4 mouths and 1 inside. Hisoka squinted his eyes, his body began to tremble, and he couldn't help but wanted to laugh. Ah, as expected, it is the red apple that I had my eye on, it is so tempting, I really want to eat him right now. Swish, 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 the playing cards were flipped faster and faster, and finally there was a snap. The magician finally took a deep breath and calmed down. He pinched his chin with one hand and hummed, since it's not Kahlua, then there's only that blind man. It's a pity. I'm not interested in rotten apples. Is it rotten? Ill fans recall what Silva said on the phone just now. Roy has changed a little recently and fell into deep thought. Huh. You don't know, right? Hisoka sensed the strangeness of your me, his eyebrows and eyes moved, and his smile began to change. It's over. The carefully prepared red apples will be rotted by the rotten apples, since that's the case. Got it. Just let me cut off the rotten apple. Shua. The playing cards were pulled apart, the edges were sharp, surpassing steel knives, shining with a deadly cold light. Regardless of the students who have already arrived at the examination venue. In the passage leading to the fir tree on the top of the mountain, it has been 2 hours since Roy and his party left the town, and they still haven't walked out. Leorio was exhausted long ago and turned into a pug, so he immediately quit and squatted on the ground with his briefcase in his arms. How long will it take to arrive? I'm exhausted. Why don't you take a rest? I don't know what this guy ate to grow up. He looks very tall, but he is the one with the worst physical fitness among them. Daw. The stick knife made a crisp sound when it hit the ground, and Roy didn't stop. Ignored him at all, and swept the eyes to see the physical fitness of the trio thoroughly. Gon's physique, 35. Kurapika's physique, 31. Leorio is exaggerated, less than 30, only a pitiful 24, as he said, he is just an ordinary person. In the original book, a few people visited Zoldyck's house after the exam, and they couldn't even push the first level of the 7-level mountain gate, and they needed special training for them from all divination. This shows that they are really not ordinary waste. Come on, Leorio, hold on for a while. Kurapika and Gon stood side by side, closely behind Roy, and said in a deep voice, hunter exams are held in different places every year. If we want to pass here, we must find the tour guide that my mother-in-law just mentioned. Only they can lead us to the exam venue. Gon asked curiously at this time. What does the tour guide look like? Will they embarrass us like the mother-in-law just now? This. Kurapika didn't know. He glanced at Roy quietly, and the other party could guess the test questions in advance during the question and answer. Maybe. He will know the foresight. Maybe he will know some inside information. Feeling some heat behind. Roy can catch Kurapika's sight without turning his head. He didn't say anything, and with a stick and knife, he stopped and looked ahead. The lake was sparkling, and there was a small boat parked on the shore. Roy immediately appeared on the boat in a flash. Wow, it's finally out, uncle, wait for me. The light spread out from the entrance of the passage, and Gon ran after Roy, with the fishing rod on his shoulder, flicking and flicking, lively and playful. Ah, is it finally here? This time, without Kurapika's reminder, Leorio finally recovered a little spirit, imitating Matthew, using both hands and feet, and leaning forward to rush out. With that speed, Kurapika was left behind in the blink of an eye, disappeared in a flash. Kurapika pursed her lips and smiled. Strange thing, isn't it running very fast? With oil on his feet, he followed. Wow, the oars parted the water and pushed the boat towards the other side of the lake. Roy sat cross-legged on the bow of the boat, rested his staff and knife flat on his knees and closed his eyes, ignoring the wooden signs floating on the water. Thanks to Kurapika and Gon, after a few people boarded the boat, Leorio did not need to row the boat, but imitated Roy and sat cross-legged in the stern, noticed the wooden sign, and found the words on it. Watch out for monsters. Cut. What's so scary about monsters? Leorio curled his lips in disdain. I don't have many other advantages, but I don't lack courage. The familiar link of eating cowhide appeared, followed by the boa constrictor emerging from the water. Listening to Leorio's words, Roy's ears twitched. He was familiar with the plot of the original novel and he discovered the python earlier than anyone else. Then, he witnessed Leorio's cowhide blown apart. Rowing like crazy, rushing towards the shore. Wow, the boa constrictor appeared. Terrified, Leorio grabbed the oar and rowed desperately towards the shore. 2 long waterlines were drawn on the surface of the water, and it was about to go ashore. At a certain moment, Roy opened his eyes, smiled and said to Gon, I'll give you another chance. Smell it carefully, doesn't it smell bad? Gon moved his nose obediently, closed his eyes and smelled it carefully. After a few seconds, his eyes lit up carelessly. He pointed to a nearby forest and shouted excitedly, Uncle, there is really a coquettish fox. You really didn't lie to me, a distant voice came out. The ferocious fox father who was hiding in the woods and peeping was suddenly startled, and then Pang Ran became furious. God TM Sao Fox. Your whole family is flirting. Damn kid, watch how I will play tricks on you later. A plan gradually emerged in his mind. Knowing that he was exposed, the vicious fox father kicked off the tree trunk with his hind legs, and flew into the depths of the mountain forest. But never thought, with a soft sound of "see," a black line suddenly crossed in the moonlight, with lightning speed and without anyone noticing, it bound his hind legs and dragged him to fly towards the boat. What the hell is this? Father Vicious Fox was taken aback. Feeling that he was flying back, his 2 yellow fox eyes stared, and he shouted angrily, Stop it. Then stretch it out, stick it out, and grab the black line. Lost sparks burst out. The tooth-piercing sound of gold and iron clashing exploded. The expected break did not happen, but the indestructible claw of the ferocious fox father split open on the spot. It was broken by the rebound of the black line. Worry 8. What the hell is this black thread? Why is it harder than my claws? The family knows their own affairs. As a monster, the ferocious fox is born with a stronger physique than a human. Even if its claws can't keep up with steel, they can't be split by ordinary swords. But the fact is, facing the armed sex thread that Roy popped out with his fingers, it just resisted for a while, then lost a claw, and was dragged directly to the boat. With a sound of dong, he hit the ground on his face and fell like a dog eating shit. Damn it. What a big fox. Leorio was startled, and swung the oar faster in his hands. Being disturbed by the boa constrictor, he can't be a subject now. On the side, Kurapika glanced at him, patted his forehead speechlessly, shifted his gaze to the father of the vicious fox, remembered the piece of wood floating on the water just now, guessed, this should be a monster up. As for the fox-shaped monster, Kurapika squinted her eyes, and suddenly remembered that just after getting off the Poseidon, Roy asked Gon if he smelled a fox. My heart was shocked, and I had a better understanding of Roy's prophetic ability. It turns out that he already knew that he would encounter a fox monster here even before he landed on the island. It's really scary enough. I've obviously made him think better. Now it seems that I am still shallow. Eyes flicker. Kurapika sighed silently. After quickly adjusting his emotions, he said to Gon in a deep voice. Gon, you are listening carefully. There should be 3 foxes around. Kurapika clearly remembered that Roy's previous prophecy mentioned 4. Is there any more? Gon rubbed his nose, exclaimed, and was about to smell it again, but was suddenly taken aback by a yell. Don't smell it. I'm the only one. The ferocious fox father got up from the boat in a panic. Staring straight at Kurapika, surprised by the blonde boy's words. His grandma's. This group of guys almost handed over their family's information before they arrived at Shanshu. Could it be that there is a ghost among the examiners? Did you leak the news in advance? The vicious fox father was in doubt, and finally ruled out the possibility of cheating. With President Netero in the Hunter Association, no one dares to risk the disgrace of the world. But this is strange. Can tell the number of his whole family. Unless one of the candidates in front of him has awakened the Nen related to precognition. Who is the one? The vicious fox's gaze swept across Gon, Kurapika, Leorio, and finally locked on Roy. The strange black thread that bound his ankle was being pinched by the other party. Who else could it be? Hey, blind man, let me go. Otherwise, don't blame me for holding you responsible for cutting off one of my claws. The vicious fox approached Roy, and stretched his arms to reveal the thin film wings on his back. Are you threatening me? Roy frowned, didn't bother to talk to him, pinched his nose, and kicked him directly into the lake. It's so coquettish, and you're still so close to me. You don't have a B number in your heart, do you? Shouldn't be offensive, right? Gon and Kurapika looked at each other, and they looked at each other in awe. Stretching out his head to see the ferocious fox father being dragged by the boat and struggling in the lake, how miserable. Bastard, blind man, quickly pull me up, Gululu. I'm Gululu, the tour guide for this level. If you dare to treat me like this, you won't be afraid of me. Gululu, won't you take you to the hunter venue? Huh. Tour guide? Gon and Kurapika were startled, and even Leorio, who was paddling the boat, was dumbfounded and stopped quickly. Uncle, did you hear that? It said it was a tour guide. Gon pointed at the vicious fox, stuttering a bit. Damn, they actually treat the tour guide as a dog for a walk. Can they still pass this level? Cough. Why don't you fish him up first? Leorio looked at Roy tentatively. Roy. Then sail the boat and go for a walk. What Gooba tour guide, dead blind man is also what you, a coquettish fox, can call. After finishing speaking, with a straight face, he simply closed his eyes, not even looking at it. Leorio, Gon, Kurapika. Due to Roy's prestige, he had to row the boat again, and dragged the vicious fox father to continue walking in the lake. Bastards, you bastards. I am the tour guide, the examiner of this level. How dare you, how dare you. Gulululu. The ferocious fox father was stunned, struggling in the choking and howling, and finally couldn't hold it anymore, raised the white flag and surrendered. Woo. I was wrong. I shouldn't be so close to you. Please let me go. Tang Tang, a big male fox, started to cry aggrievedly. His face was like a paste. I don't know if it was tears or lake water. Gon couldn't bear it, and looked at Roy quietly. Without raising his eyelids, Roy hooked his fingers and dragged it back to the boat. I said a number, 100 million. Agreed, go to the hunter venue. If you don't agree, just keep soaking in the water. I am a blind man, but I have plenty of patience. Daddy Fox. What the hell are you pulling me up for? You might as well let me soak in the water. 1 billion? Asking a monster for money, will your conscience as a human really not hurt? The vicious fox was furious, drank too much lake water, burped, and said angrily, I see, I will transfer the money to you when I get home. You're on the right track. Roy glanced at Leorio, go to shore. Leorio and Kurapika looked at each other, heaved a sigh of relief, and quickly responded, hey. He rowed the boat to the shore and landed. Let's go, lead the way. On the shore, Roy shook the dog leash in his hand. Father Vicious Fox understood, held his stomach full of anger, and reluctantly took Roy, Kurapika, Gon and Leorio to the home under the cedar tree on the top of the mountain. Why isn't Dad coming back? The curry is almost overcooked. The cedar tree on the top of the mountain is the residence of the Vicious Fox family. There is a faint curl of smoke coming out. In the small wooden house built with the back against the cedar tree, the daughter of the vicious fox drooled wildly while watching the curry cooked in the pot, waiting for her father to wait eagerly. "You, wait a little longer." The ferocious fox mother gave her daughter a funny look, and slapped her unruly little hands away. "Your father went down the mountain to investigate. It won't be long before we come back." "Ah, I'm hungry." The vicious fox's daughter stretched her body and lay down on the table in a rogue manner. The son of the fierce fox who was adding firewood looked at his younger sister dotingly, and said to the mother of the fierce fox, "Mom, let the younger sister eat first. You're full. Good for acting, aren't you? You, don't let your father hear this." The ferocious fox mother slapped her son on the back of the head, and said seriously, "This is not called acting, but a task. Our family can live here safely, and it is only because of this task that we can get the protection of the Hunter Association. Otherwise, it's not easy to survive in the human world with our identity as monsters." The vicious fox's daughter curled her lips. "I haven't seen how powerful humans are. It's like those examinees who are being played around by us. Don't talk nonsense." "Eh? Your father is back." The vicious fox mother moved her nose, and she smelled the vicious fox's father several meters away. "It's not just him. There are several examinees." The vicious fox son glanced at his mother and sister, quickly wrapped the bandages on his body, and urged, "Mom, sister, stop talking, hurry up and get ready to act. Come, come." The ferocious fox mother immediately disarmed and returned to her original body, grabbed her daughter by the collar and lifted her up. The vicious fox's daughter stuck out her tongue, dipped in some saliva, and wiped it at the corner of her eye, showing a frightened expression. She glanced at her elder brother from the corner of her eye, and couldn't help reminding him, "Brother, you didn't lie down properly, half pull your butt. It's revealed." The vicious fox's son blushed, hurriedly pulled up his pants, looked at the door in desperation, and waited quietly for the audience to come. Squeak. The wooden door was pushed open from the outside. The whole family received the signal and were about to start the performance. Even the vicious fox mother bared her teeth. Suddenly, the vicious fox father turned into a human uncharacteristically and limped in. I was stunned on the spot. Dad, husband, how could it be you?" The vicious fox family is stunned. "Shouldn't the examinee come to the door, so you hide aside? Now why did you come in first and become a human body? You don't follow the predetermined script. Ahem. Why can't it be me?" The vicious fox dad glared at his son and daughter, coughed dryly and said, "What are you still doing? Hurry up and meet your uncles, the vicious fox family." "God damn uncle. The youngest one looks like he is only about 10 years old. Let the two of us who add up to be nearly 100 years old call a 10-year-old kid an uncle. Dad, are you making a mistake?" Vicious fox daughter and son look at each other. He stared blankly at Roy, Kurapika, Leorio, Gon and a group of people walking in calmly. The brain crashes immediately. What should I do next? I won't do it. The vicious fox's daughter looked at her father timidly, and then at her elder brother for help. The son of the vicious fox narrowed his eyes suddenly, stretched out his hands and got up from the ground, lifted his body and restored it to its original shape, bared his teeth and said, "What a fart. Didn't you see a rope tied to our dad's foot? He was tied up." "Ah." The ferocious fox mother and daughter quickly took a look at the ferocious fox father's ankle, and found that there was indeed a black rope. They reacted immediately and became angry. Chi turned into a fox and came towards Roy, Gon, Kurapika, and Leorio. "It seems that we are not welcome here," Roy said with a deadpan expression as he led the vicious fox father by the hand. After the words fell, Kurapika and Leorio looked at each other, and they both saw speechlessness in each other's eyes. "If you tied up his father, it is really a problem that he will welcome him. Uncle, if someone kidnapped my father, I wouldn't welcome him." Backstab from Gon, always innocent and deadly. Leorio quietly pulled Gon Shichung, "Kid, don't be on the wrong team, hey." Gon was unmoved, but looked at him suspiciously and asked, "Is there something wrong with what I said?" How do you ask me to answer you?" Leorio glanced at Roy cautiously. Roy turned his head, frowned at Gon and said, "Why do you think so?" "Kids, don't talk nonsense, be careful to bite your tongue." As he spoke, Roy raised his staff and knife and put it on the shoulder of the vicious fox father, and said softly, "Tell them, did I kidnap you?" The stick knife was pressed against the neck of the fierce fox's father. It was cold, although it was not out of the body, it still gave the fierce fox's father unstoppable pressure. Fierce fox, the cold sweat that came out of Dad Lee's forehead fell on the spot, and he couldn't even wipe it clean. He sternly yelled at his wife and children. Nonsense. Who was tied up? I do this voluntarily. Hurry up and change back, and entertain you uncles. The vicious fox family. Kurapika, Leorio, Ia. Gone. A gust of cold wind blew in, as if something. Everyone looked down and saw a ghost, as if it was their own integrity. It's too late. Can you still play like this? Father. What are you afraid of? The son of the vicious fox couldn't help it anymore, glared at his father, and said with hatred, We are all here, are you still worried that you won't be able to save you? It's just. Boom. What about mere humans? In an instant, an unparalleled momentum erupted from Roy's body. Wearing the title, King's Foundation, the domineering color shows off the domineering power. The sound of click exploded in everyone's ears like fried beans. The cabin was overwhelmed and crumbling, and several wounds were torn on the wooden walls, which was shocking. My home, the ferocious fox father wailed. Immediately, the defense was broken, the eyes were dark, and the world was spinning. But before he fainted, her daughter took a step ahead of her and wobbled towards the floor. Mom and Dad, I'm so dizzy, the daughter of the vicious fox staggered. Fortunately, the mother of the vicious fox has quick eyesight and quick hands, so she gave her a hand and brought her into her arms, which saved her, surviving the disaster. This is Nyen, the voice of chattering teeth came out. Facing the domineering look and arrogance, the vicious fox son struggled to support himself, trembling uncontrollably, looking at Roy in shock, as if he saw a demon god. He sits high on a high void throne, looking down at the human world. His pair of blind eyes are cold and mysterious, they can't see clearly, but they give birth to eyes like sharp swords, directly nailing their family in the original place land. Dare not move. Dare not speak. Dare not look. Dare not think about drooping your head, but still maintain a sliver of consciousness. Not falling down is an extravagant hope. What's the matter with them? The sudden surprise made Gon confused. The vicious fox family, who had flaunted their might before and turned into a threat to them, all of a sudden wilted. The little kid, Monk Jong-er, couldn't figure it out. Driven by curiosity, he raised his foot and was about to move forward. Clinker walked in front with his legs, but Leorio and Kurapika pulled his arms back abruptly, one by one. Don't go there. Are you an idiot? Being curious about everything will only hurt you. He punched Gon hard on the forehead. Leorio spat and sprayed wildly, almost drowned by Gon. You hit me on the head again. Gon felt the pain, crouched down with his head in his arms, and stared at Leorio aggrievedly. Leorio raised his chin, didn't like him at all, pulled his sunglasses, looked ahead in shock, and asked Kurapika cautiously. Does this look familiar to you? Kurapika looked at Roy's back solemnly. A fiery red flashed in his brown pupils, shook his head, and did not speak. He vaguely saw something, but he was not sure. As for the familiarity that Leorio said, he also understood that what the other party meant was reading. But what Kurapika can be sure of is, this is definitely not Nyen. He remembers it clearly, whether it is the armed sex thread that Roy displayed on the Poseidon, or the armed sex whip used to punish Matthew. They all end up with entities, but the aura in front of me, let alone the entity, I can't even see a ghost, it's purely Roy's aura of looking down on the world, or spirit. It's just, can human beings really have a spirit that is terrifying enough to affect reality? Kurapika took a peek at the split wooden wall, opened his mouth, and was unsure. Answer my question. What about mere human beings? Roy maintained his domineering look and turned towards the vicious fox family. He took a step forward with a blank expression on his face, tightened his stick and knife in his hand, and the ferocious fox's father immediately gave a slap, and yelled at the ferocious fox's son. You dog. Didn't you hear what uncle asked you? Damn. Hunting geese all day long, I didn't get pecked by the geese, but ran into a giant dragon. I haven't seen such a terrifying existence among the candidates in previous years. The ferocious fox father was so depressed that he wanted to vomit blood, and the fox stared. Why don't you hurry up and die for me, and apologize to your uncle? Plop. I don't know if I couldn't hold it anymore, or was scared by my father. The vicious fox son's hind legs softened, and he knelt down at Roy's feet tremblingly. Uncle, I was wrong. Mere human beings, very great. My son is ignorant, I'll let you see a joke. Then, the vicious fox mother supported the vicious fox daughter and bowed to Roy. Roy had a panoramic view of everything, and glanced at the fierce fox father. Thank you for having a good wife. Saying that, the domineering arrogance suddenly disappeared. Both the man and the cabin were relieved. It was too scary, As if after a nightmare, the vicious fox family came back to their senses, only to find that their whole bodies were drenched in cold sweat. 200 million. Let's transfer the money. Pulling a chair and sitting down with a big horse, Roy was not polite to his nephews, nieces, brothers and sisters, stretched out his hand to scoop a bowl of curry, and poured it on the steaming rice, feasted on it. Gudong. There was a sound of swallowing saliva. Gon covered his stomach, feeling hungry. Roy glanced at him angrily and amusedly. What are you still doing? Do you want me to feed you? Oh, here we come. Long live Uncle. Thank you Mr. Tiano for your hospitality. Leorio and Kurapika followed the cheering Gon and sat down around the dining table, showing off. The vicious fox family. That's my family's dinner, Daddy, kid's daddy. The ferocious fox mother took a pair of children and swallowed hard, then turned her head and glared at the ferocious fox father. The father of the vicious fox hesitated to speak, showing a sad face, and carefully came to Roy's side with a smile and said, "Brother, didn't we agree that we only want to accompany 100 million? Why, it became 200 million in a blink of an eye. What? Still losing money? And you said you were not kidnapped. This is clearly a ransom." The vicious fox family is dumbfounded. Roy took his time, scooped up a spoonful of curry, put it into his mouth. The taste was mellow, and it melted before it entered his stomach. He never thought that Warcraft would have such a good cooking skill. He took out a napkin, wiped his mouth and said, "If an apology is useful, what do you need the Metropolitan Police Department for? 100 million is your voyeuristic fee, and the other 100 million is my mental damage fee. You scared me just now, you know that? I want some mental damage fee, is there a problem? Hell. Who's scaring whom? Didn't you see that my son was kneeled down by you?" The ferocious fox father had a black line on his forehead. He rubbed his teeth, met Roy's blind eyes and sighed helplessly. 200 million, I'll transfer it to you right now. He figured it out. This is what it means to set up a name and raise the price on the ground. With this personality, if you don't change it now, it might become 300 million or 400 million in a while. Simply, grit your teeth and admit it. Drip. Your account ending in 7086 has transferred a sum of 200 million cash. Please check. After receiving the money, Roy showed a satisfied smile, hooked his fingers, and the armed sex thread, wrapped around the ankle of the ferocious foxfather, retracted into his body like a spirit snake. Once you are free in the early days, when will your heart flutter? The ferocious fox's father breathed a sigh of relief and stretched his ankles, but he was not happy for 2 seconds. He turned his head to meet his wife's sharp eyes, his heart felt cold, and he shrank his neck. After finishing the calf, 200 million will be given for free. The tigress will definitely want to F*K him at night, so it's better to go to Saba City to hide for a while. The ferocious fox's father had some calculations in his heart, restrained his temper, and waited until Roy, Gon, Kurapika, and Leorio were wiped clean, and couldn't wait to say, "Congratulations to the 4 who passed the test, we will set off for Saba now. Fly to Sabado and stay for a few days. After returning, the tigress must be relieved." "I won't do it." The vicious fox daughter sat down on the ground, kicked her legs, and said listlessly, "I'm hungry and dizzy, I can't fly anymore." "What should I do then?" The ferocious fox's father stared at him. It takes a lot of energy to travel long distances. A single fox can't take 2 people. There were 4 people at the scene, and the 4 foxes were originally just right, but now one is missing suddenly. "Well, is it possible that I have to fly one more time?" The ferocious fox father secretly glanced at his tigress, and shook his head firmly. "Eat a big meal." "But, Dad, you are the one who ruined my dinner. I hate you." The vicious fox's daughter didn't believe his nonsense at all, so she simply buried her head on the ground, plugged her ears, and understood. It won't work if anyone tries to persuade her today. Forget it. Seeing this, Roy walked out of the hut with his back turned, and calmly said to Father Vicious Fox, "Just take the 3 of them away. I have my own way of keeping up. Hey, no matter how awesome you are as a human being, you can't fly. Can you find a way to fart?" The ferocious fox's father curled his lips secretly, not forgetting to remind Roy. "There is no land route from here to Saba City, you can only fly." Roy, who is flying and flying, squinted at the vicious fox father. "Don't make me repeat it a second time." "God. Lord, you are awesome, I want to see how you fly." The ferocious fox father snorted coldly, greeted his wife and son, and flew towards the sky with Gon, Kurapika, and Leorio. Although very angry with Mr. Fox, Mr. O. Fox and his son still know what to do and what not to do. Especially The other party's strength is terrifying, and it's not easy to mess with. If you really want to imitate your daughter, sister's self-willedness, you can't say. You can't eat it. Hey, uncle, why don't you go first and I'll wait? Huh. Gon was taken away by the vicious fox father, and his feet were already in the air. He stared at his big innocent eyes, and shouted to Roy below, "You don't have wings, you can't fly." "Right. Teacher Tianwei, you should go first, I can stay here and wait," Kurapika echoed Gon. With so many grown-ups present, it is impossible for a child to be wrong. "Oh, forget it, I'll stay, you all don't talk about it." Leorio grabbed his own hair irritably, raised his head, and shouted at the vicious fox son who grabbed him and flew into the sky, "Please put me down." The ferocious fox son glanced at his father in embarrassment, then looked down at Roy on the ground, not knowing what to do. A pair of fox eyes suddenly stared at the boss. I almost popped my eyeballs out. "Worry, this. What the hell is this? See you." Roy held a stick knife and a wine gourd hanging from his waist, kicked the ground with one foot, and directly stepped on the air to catch up to the sky. It turned out to be. Really took to the sky. As if there were stairs in the air, every time Roy landed, there would be circles of ripples, indescribably chic and wanton. Without wings, it's true that you can't fly. The blind swordsman opened the wine gourd, took a sip of wine, and opened his mouth to breathe out the alcohol. But as long as there is a way in your heart, you can go to the sky. Let's go. Do you still want me to lead the way? Stepping on the moon steps, Roy caught up head on and looked back at everyone. The vicious fox family. Gon. Leorio. Kurapika, as if under the gaze of Medusa, all of them were petrified. It can be clearly seen from their pupils, shocking. Damn, Lord, if you say you can fly, you can really fly, I'm very embarrassed by what you've done. The ferocious fox father stared blankly at Roy standing on the sky, walking like a stroll in the courtyard, the sour jade. The horrible thing is, the Gon who was caught by him yelled, "Wow," his eyes were flooded, and he yelled, "Four mouths, one after another." Because I was too excited, I almost didn't drag him to crash. Fortunately, he stabilized in time, so that he was saved from one dead body and 2 lives. Gon is an idiot, if it's not in the sky, I have to give him another punch. Leorio noticed the dangerous Gon and the vicious fox father, and snorted arrogantly. The little ghost just lacks Xing. He is not as good as me, he can face any big situation calmly. But what the hell are you bragging about? The mother vicious fox glared at Leorio below, and said angrily, "Asshole, you hurt me." "Forehead, how could I hurt you? You are a fox, I am human, our natural models do not match." Leorio blushed and let go. Unexpectedly, because I was too excited, I unconsciously pinched the ankle of the vicious fox mother, smiled embarrassingly, and hurriedly apologized. "Smi Masai." However, the mother of Sao Fox didn't accept his apology at all. She just turned her face away and shouted at Father Fox, "Why are you still standing there? Hey, let's go. Let's go." The voice almost frightened the father of the vicious fox. When he came back to his senses, he shrank his neck and flew forward with Gon's head go. "Uncle, I'll wait for you in front." When passing by Roy, Gon was so excited that he waved to Roy vigorously. Roy nodded slightly, watched him and Leorio go away one by one, and finally had an eye-to-eye look with the cool Lapika. The blond boy nodded at him, and gave him a deep look, with an indescribably complicated mood. Whenever he feels that this is the limit of Roy's strength, the opponent can always pull out all kinds of bright performances, and slap him in the face fiercely. So much so that he looked at the other party as if he was looking at a mountain. This mountain is shrouded in clouds and mist all the year round, and there are many obstacles. If you enter it, you will get lost and don't know your way back. Hula. The wings flickered, bringing out a few breezes, and at this time the bright moon was born. Watching Gon, Kurapika, and Leorio slip into the bright moonlight and disappear soon. Roy stroked his hair with his hands behind his back, stepped on the moon steps, and followed him leisurely. Thanks to his growing physical fitness, Roy has the possibility to learn all the 6 styles easily. Moon steps is actually an upgraded version of Tianzong, which relies on powerful feet to step on the air to achieve the effect of staying in the air for a short time. But although it is short-lived for the non-human who is physically tyrannical, this short term can be infinitely extended. What's more, Roy used the ability of the gravity fruit to eliminate the gravity exerted on him. In other words, he didn't use the moon step, and he could easily float up with just a little tiptoe. Furry, Dapeng rises with the same wind in one day, soaring up to 90,000 miles. With the moon shining above his head, wearing starlight, and people flying in the sky, Roy witnessed the cabin gradually turning into a small black spot until it disappeared. Let go of the perception and look. Lush mountains and forests, shimmering lakes. Sheer. Sometimes birds cut through the night sky. Great rivers and mountains, too beautiful to behold, nothing more than this. Reminder. The host has a sense of the world, and the experience value is +5. Huh. The prompt sound on the panel suddenly jumped out, throwing a stone into Roy's peaceful heart. Ripples and ripples. Roy chuckled in surprise. He didn't expect that viewing the world would also increase his experience points, and a sense of enlightenment arose in his heart. The liver experience is not limited to the tempering and improvement of skills such as practicing knives, drawing manga, and fishing, but may also be used to hone the mood and improve the pattern. As everyone knows, there is an old monk who has been meditating for thousands of years, flying every day. There is also a woodcutter chopping firewood all year round, cutting the river with one axe. Skill needs to be tempered, and heart also needs to be hardened. This is why when various attributes reach their limits, if you want to break through the limits, you must have a certain amount of experience and understanding. It's a pity that seeing the world and feeling it is too mysterious. It's something you can encounter but not seek. I can't imitate it. Roy felt regretful, accepted the 5 experience points with tears in his eyes, curled his mouth, and quickened his pace in a happy mood. Buzz, buzz. Circles of ripples appeared in the void, and Roy disappeared into the moonlight in the blink of an eye. After a long night of trekking, I finally arrived at the place where the hunter exam is held, Saba City. Pa, I'll clean you up when I get back. A crisp applause sounded. The ferocious fox's mother gave the ferocious fox's father a big pocket, wrapped her son's arm, and went back with a cold snort. Don't look, you need face. The ferocious fox father hurriedly pulled the Arabic hat on his head to cover his red and swollen half face, smiled at Roy, Gon, Kurapika, and Leorio and said, "Follow me." While speaking, he didn't care about the dumbfounded expressions of several people. He took out an address from his pocket and muttered, "No, the 5th of February 10, Saba City." With a few people, they stopped in front of a magnificent castle. This is the venue for the hunter exam. Wow. Damn it, it's so high. A team of white pigeons flew by. Gon raised his hand to cover the sun and looked at the sky. The castle was so tall that he couldn't even see it. As expected, it is an official test venue. Leorio then added, expressing his heart for him. It's just that the entrance is so luxurious. Indeed. After all, this is a gathering place for masters who want to become professional hunters from all over the world. Kurapika on the side nodded approvingly, his eyes flickered, and he couldn't hide his shock. He subconsciously glanced at Roy, who was holding a stick and knife, and walked straight past them, as if he hadn't seen the castle. Opened the door and walked in. Hey, Teacher Tianwei, you are going the wrong way, the entrance is not over there. Kurapika hurriedly reminded her. Clinker. He didn't go wrong. Dad Fox pointed to the cooking spot, then turned to look at the trio. This is the entrance to the test. Eh? Gon, Kurapika, Leorio. 17. The 3 faces were stunned, because the excitement of seeing the castle was instantly drowned out. Visible to the naked eye. People collapsed. Does the Dignified Hunter Association not do any superficial work? A few 1.0 people couldn't help complaining, reluctantly bid farewell to the castle, followed Roy and the fierce fox father, and walked into the restaurant. Uyaji, steak set meal. After entering the door, Father Fox yelled at the owner who was busy at the bar. Seeing that he was an acquaintance, the boss smiled meaningfully and said, "How do you bake it?" Roast over low heat. It's still a big portion, right? No. I want a smaller portion this time. Looked suspiciously at Father Vicious Fox. Why didn't you come according to the signal? Don't you usually order a large portion? The ferocious fox father covered his sore face, glanced resentfully at Roy, and sighed. Money is a little tight recently, the boss will take care of you. Okay, got it. The boss couldn't say anything more, and winked at the young and beautiful waiter. The waiter smiled and led them to a box, opened the door and said, "Please come in." Roy smiled and nodded to the waiter, and walked into the box first. Then, Gon, Leorio, and Kurapika filed in. In a blink of an eye, there was only the fierce fox father standing at the door, and threw them a few number plates. This is your admission number. There are millions if not tens of thousands of candidates who take the hunter test every year. And only 1 out of 10,000 people can get here. As a newcomer, hey, Tui, can a blind person be considered a rookie? It's almost as good as a monster. Father Vicious Fox took a peek at Roy, twitched the corner of his mouth and continued, as rookies, you have done enough. Come back to take the test next year. Please find someone to lead the way. I'm not waiting for you. Bang. The door of the box was closed heavily. The 4 number plates flew towards Roy, Gon, Kurapika, and Leorio, and they held them firmly in their hands. Kurapika and Leorio looked at each other, peeking at Roy. Roy had no expression on his face, he didn't even look at the number plate, and directly pinned it to his chest. Hey, uncle, let's connect together. I'm 405, you are 406, what a coincidence. Gon. You idiot. We came together, of course the numbers are connected. Leorio 403. Kurapika 404. It's not a 2-person connection, but a 4-person connection. But then again, this guy is really rude. Leorio is aggrieved. What do you mean come back next year? Is he sure we are bound to fail? Not us. This does not include Tianwei. Kurapika glanced at Roy, and said with a serious expression, 1 every 3 years is the pass rate for newcomers. Most newcomers can't stand the harsh test and give up halfway. And a lot of people were injured during the test and couldn't be tested anymore, too. Did directly in the test. Huh? Gon scratched his head, puzzled and said, since it's so difficult. Why do you still want to be a hunter? Damn, you guys are fake, you don't know anything, you came to take the hunter exam, are you sure you are serious? Both Leorio and Kurapika stared wide-eyed, staring at Gon as if they had discovered a new continent. Gon's heart was trembling, and cold sweat broke out on his forehead. Stupid, listen to me. Hunter, it is the highest paid and most profitable profession in the world. Leorio and Kurapika were stunned at the same time, came back to their senses, looked at each other, and showed extremely contemptuous eyes at the same time. Leorio. Why are you pretending to be noble? Jika. Then what money do you ask for? Gon was caught between the two, and he didn't know where to put his hands. Blue smoke was visible to the naked eye from the hedgehog's head. Obviously, the CPU was too backward to deal with such a complicated problem in front of him, so he turned his head and looked at Roy for help. His big eyes flickered and wrote a sentence pitifully. Uncle, help me. It's a pity. Roy held the stick knife and remained unmoved. He leaned against the wall and fell all the way with the box elevator, his eyes swept over Leorio and Kurapika, feeling a little embarrassed. As the saying goes, the hemp rope is only picky and broken, and the bad luck is only for the poor. Fate is the best at playing tricks on people. A person who only cares about money ends up being a noble doctor who treats the poor for free without taking any money. A person with a heart of justice, but in the end he became the boss of the underworld family, and his hands were stained with the blood of countless people. In the end, both of them deviated from their original intentions and ambitions, which is really ironic. Can you free yourself from the mercy of fate? Maybe. There's only one way, that is to grab it by the throat before fate comes to its door. Kill him. Only in this way can we seek true freedom and the premise of all of this is strong. Roy secretly sounded the alarm in his heart, holding a stick knife in his hand, showing off slightly. How? Gon. What's your choice? After arguing for a fruitless round, Leorio Kurapika simultaneously pressed Gon, the referee. The poor baby backed up step by step and was forced to the corner. She couldn't bear it any longer. She yelled loudly and hid behind Roy. How can I repair? If you want to ask, just ask Uncle, I don't know. Who the hell dares to ask him what you said? Isn't that purely for death? Leorio and Kurapika calmed down sensibly, snorted coldly, and simply didn't look at each other, while turning their heads away. At this moment, after more than a minute, the elevator finally stopped at 800, and the door of the box opened. Gon, Kurapika, and Leorio swallowed nervously, followed Roy out with serious faces. The stick knife hit the ground, making a crisp sound. A blind man with a child, leading 2 dogs, and 2 teenagers or youths, appeared in everyone's eyes. The moment he saw the 4 of them, there was a sound of footsteps in the quiet examination room. A little white-haired kid screamed, Onisan, turned around, hugged his beloved skateboard, and clung to the wall in a panic, moving outward bit by bit. I kept saying, you can't see me in my heart. Put my hands in my pockets and hold a few mini-bombs. It seems that I have already made preparations. As soon as the situation is wrong, I will immediately blow up the examination room and get away. It's a pity. His behavior of pretending to be an ostrich is nothing under the powerful perception of knowledge. As soon as Roy stepped into the examination room, he locked him in. Hey, Kahlua meow, your grandpa Niu is here. Don't move. One more move, and your only photo will be posted online. Roy looked at Kahlua with a sneer, and moved his lips, imitating Uvajan to attach a layer of reading to the volume, achieving an incredible effect. The difference is that Roy's ravings were wrapped in chi, and they didn't spread out, but concentrated into a bunch, and passed into Kahlua's ears alone. An effect of sound transmission into secret has been achieved. Kahlua froze. I remember I paid money to delete the photo. No, there are backups. Roy seemed to know what Kahlua was thinking, and smiled jokingly. Oni-san, are you King kidding me? Kahlua Qian turned around and stared at Roy, his eyes could breathe fire. Huh. Gon's dog's nose was on the line, and he was extremely sensitive to the breath. When he even sensed a strong hostility, he stretched out his hand and pulled Roy's sleeve and said, Uncle, there is someone looking at you. Could he be your fan? Hearing what Gon said, Kurapika and Leorio followed their eyes and noticed Kahlua. Among all the very nuclear eyes, this white-haired kid has the sharpest eyes. Fan? No, he is my younger brother. Eh? You have a younger brother? Gon, Kurapika, and Leorio all turned into bean eyes, and they were taken aback. Roy looked at the three of them strangely. Is it necessary to be so shocked? Why, I can't have a younger brother? Not only my younger brother, but my good big brother is also there. Roy casually glanced at a certain corner, and the pair of blind eyes without focus were reflected in the eyes of Gitaracker and a certain magician. Both of them couldn't help being stunned. Ho, 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 your blind brother seems to have spotted us. Hisoka grinned at the corners of his mouth in a deep versus shape, and glanced at the Yie fan beside him with a half-smile. The poker cards he was playing in his hand would turn into aces for a while, and ghosts for a while, just like his slightly surprised mood, ups and downs indefinite. Ilmi. Those black and white eyes are still as lifeless as a dead person's. No response. As for Trash, he has always been unimpressed. Even if he heard that the opponent has become a little bit stronger, compared with Kahlua, he is still a Trash. If you are interested, don't take my feelings into consideration. Me. There is only one person in my heart from the beginning to the end. Gitaracker smiled and looked in Kahlua's direction. My beloved brother, when will my brother walk into your heart? Birds of a feather flock together and people form groups. It's not unreasonable. Only perverts can play with perverts. Roy withdrew his gaze. A cold arc was drawn at the corner of his mouth, and Chu wiped Gon's head with his hand. Tisk. The hedgehog head is really thorny enough. However, speaking of fans, there seem to be quite a few of my readers here. After the words fell, Gon, Kurapika, and Leorio were brought back to reality. The three of them vaguely felt the ground shaking, and looked up. The familiar turmoil appeared in the crowd, which was simply a replica of the Poseidon. Not long after Roy showed up in the examination room, someone gradually recognized him. The blind man's crutches are tall. Damn, isn't this Teacher Tiano? Hey, brother, slap me hard, I suspect I'm dreaming. Peeved. I told you to use force, I didn't tell you to use so much force. Are you King trying to kill me? You told me to fan. Okay. You are ruthless, my idol is here, let's not argue with you for now. Your idol? That's my idol. I slap you, and I finally confirmed it. Wow ha ha ha, I'm not dreaming. Dao sensei, it's me, we are at the signing session, I've seen it. Peeved. What the K are you doing to me? Let this go. The voice of depressed and vomiting blood can be vaguely heard in the commotion crowd. But immediately, he was drowned in the sound of footsteps by dozens of people running wildly. Okay, here we go. Roy smiled. Gon, Kurapika, Leorio. They looked at each other strangely. The situation was so familiar that the three of them almost mistakenly thought they were back on the Sea God again. Hee. Everyone is so enthusiastic. Since everyone is in the same period, I will give you a discount. A signature is 200,000 yuan. A group photo is 500,000 yuan. And you will not wait until the expiration date. Good guy. Do you apply all these words? Apart from this, the promised discount, why do you get higher and higher discounts? I remember that on the Sea God, a signature is only 100,000 yuan, and a group photo is only 300,000 yuan. If the price increases, the price will increase. Do you want to fool people like this? Leorio, Kurapika are messed up in the wind. There is a sea breeze in the examination room. Yes. It must be like this. Uncle, you seem to have miscalculated. I know that the discount is getting smaller. Gon rubbed his head and kindly reminded Roy. Before he could finish speaking, Roy sealed his mouth with a threat. It's not good for a child to be too talkative. Let Master Yi calm down. Step, step, step. The dense footsteps, accompanied by the appearance of the fans, never stopped. It's not easy to meet a famous person like Mr. Tianwei. Within a few seconds, Roy was surrounded by dozens of fans. At the corner, Kahlua saw this, and knew that this was a good opportunity to sneak away, but when he thought that the abominable Ornison had backed up his reason. I could only grit my teeth and watch Roy collect the rice, and was furious, but it happened again. I can only curse him silently in my heart. The return meeting can't go on. Perhaps, it seems that there is really a will of God, and the voice of Kahlua has been heard. At this time, there was a sudden explosion with a scream. Got everyone's attention. A man who surrounded Roy asking for his autograph suddenly had his arm cut off by a playing card. Weeping and falling in a pool of blood. My hand. My hand. Oh he he he. What happened to your hand? Blood gushed out from the severed arm, and Oda's shoes appeared in front of his eyes. Hisoka squinted his eyes into a crescent shape, smiled and hooked his hands. The playing cards were spinning around. He pinched them between his fingers, fixed them, and took a closer look. It was a fake card. Tisk, be careful. I bumped into someone, but I have to apologize. Oh ha ha, cut. Why is it him again? Crazy magician Hisoka. In the crowd, a man who looked like a passerby at first glance, with a body that looked like a fat tiger, quietly stepped back, far away from Hisoka. He took no less than 30 exams, and the one that impressed him the most was the issue one. It was this perverted magician in front of him who brutally injured more than 20 contemporaries, even including an examiner whom he didn't like. That's why he was disqualified. This re-examination. So, you guys, as rookies, don't get close to him. Master Tonpa quietly touched Roy's side, but they, a group of rookies, said popular science. But some people are purely bad. Some people are not only bad, but also pretend to be sanctimonious, not only messing with you but also making you appreciate him. Born 10,000 years after 35 exams, the great god who has repeatedly failed and fought repeatedly, Tonpa, is a typical representative of them, a utterly despicable villain. Please. Can you get out of my autograph session? Roy turned his head and looked at Tonpa. The dog. Don't block me from signing autographs for fans. The fans who didn't see me are all hurt because of me? Tonpa. Mada, why are the newcomers so fierce this time? It seems a bit difficult. Tonpa's breath stagnates, and he smiled sarcastically and said, sorry, sorry. Turning around, pouted his fat ass and got into the crowd, hiding away from Roy. Uncle, I don't think he has any bad intentions. Gon watched Tonpa leave, glanced at Hisoka and said, that guy feels very dangerous. Yeah. Noticing that Hisoka was gradually approaching this way, Leorio swallowed a mouthful of saliva, and quietly leaned closer to Roy. This guy's smile is too weird. Always gives me a kind of eerie look. It feels like you have to be careful. Magician number 44 Hisoka, I've heard rumors about him. Kurapika added with a solemn expression. The other party is not just dangerous, he is also the landlord above the 200th floor of the Sky Arena. What is the concept of the 200th floor of the Sky Arena? That is the watershed of Nien. There is no one who can't use cold garbage. Ho, 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 Sparasi, it's such a great feeling to be known by so many people. So. Excuse me, I'm also a loyal fan of Teacher Tiano. Step. Step. The clown's shoes stepped on the ground, one step at a time, one blood mark. Everyone retreated as Hisoka passed by. Soon, the signing session was torn open for Hisoka to walk in front of Roy and decide. Tano-sensei, can I take a photo with you? Hisoka raised his head and looked at Roy. He was already tall, but compared to Roy's height of 2.34 meters, he still had to look up. The blind man smiled, touched the wine gourd on his waist, took a sip of wine, opened his mouth and let out a mouthful of alcohol, and sprayed it on Hisoka's face, almost missing his carefully made tear makeup. It took. Hee hee, of course you can. How do you want to get along? After taking a sip of fruit wine, the aftertaste was very sweet. Roy looked down at Hisoka. The smile on the corner of the magician's mouth stagnated for a moment, and then. The arc of the corner of the mouth opened even wider. Well, how about shaking hands? Hisoka let the smell of alcohol linger on his face, stretched out a hand, and handed it to Roy. It was a pair of slender but powerful hands with 10 fingers. The nails on the fingertips were sharp and gleaming with cold light, not like nails, but like blades. Gudong. There was a sound of swallowing saliva. I don't know what happened, but there seemed to be a thunderbolt brewing between Hisoka and Roy. The air pressure in the venue is so low that people can't breathe. The air seems to have a tendency to stagnate. At this time, how will Uncle choose? The other party is obviously not kind. Will he shake hands with this dangerous fellow? Gon's eyes widened. Leorio loosened his tie. Kurapika looked at the two intently, frowning slightly. Roy's fans around were nervously sweating for Roy, but no one dared to say a word, even a single syllable. Oh, my Kahlua, don't look at that trash, look at me more. Brother loves you, you are not allowed to have other people in your heart. Il-Fan turned into Gitarakar obsessively looking at Kahlua not far away. Seeing that his most precious brother is also staring at Roy intently. There is even a little smile on the corner of his mouth. In the stomach my stomach is sour, full of jealousy. I told you to chase after me, you deserve it. John didn't know that he was being targeted by his perverted elder brother. He sneered as he watched Roy being sieged by that lunatic Hisoka, feeling secretly refreshed. He couldn't help but whistled, but he never thought that a black thread was lurking in the shadows, protruding from behind him like a spirit snake, without giving him any chance to react, and directly blocked his mouth. The guy who owes money doesn't have the capital to be arrogant. My stupid Odudu, the way you whistle, isn't it too gloating? Roy stood with a knife, and the other end of the black line was under his feet. He sealed Kalua's mouth with one foot, looked down at Hisoka, his blind eyes twirled, and smiled. Of course, I've never rejected my fans. But, Roy paused, and waved a finger in front of Hisoka. It's expensive to shake hands and take a photo. You must be so faithful that you are already mentally prepared, right? Ho ho ho, of course. It's like paying homage to the dead. Ha. I like fans like you. Roy grabbed Hisoka's hand with a snap, pulled him to his side, and said, yeah, to the camera. Hisoka was stunned for a moment, but before he could react, his body tilted and he almost staggered. Only then did he notice. The speed of the blind man is fast enough. Tisk. Hisoka licked his lips abnormally, and there was an expression of enjoyment on his face. He thought it was a rotten apple, but he didn't expect the other party to give him a surprise. Immediately with the palm of his hand, he pinched Roy's palm hard. Put away your pitiful 150-point power attribute. Roy didn't realize it, and kept a warm smile on his face, but in fact, he saw Hisoka's fat times with a glance. Name. Hisoka. Bone age, 27. Physique, 110. Normal person 10. Speed. 140. Normal person 10. Power, 150. Normal person 1 to 0. Air capacity, 170. Normal person 10, strong enough. But limited. Compared to his 199 points, which has reached the peak of mortals, his pitiful 150 points are really not enough. The invisible wrestling was still going on. Hisoka followed Roy and said, yeah, to the camera. The corners of his mouth were pulled up obliquely, almost reaching the ears. Ah, Sparasi. What a great apple, but it's rotten, it looks. It will rot after it's ripe. The palm began to deform. The pain came. Hisoka seems to have discovered a new continent. He started to tremble with excitement. He held Roy's hand, and veins popped out, pulling out his strength. It's a pity that he still gradually fell into the wind. It feels like. Roy's hand is like a solid rock that remains unmoved. Gotcha, but there was a slight crisp sound. The two separated their hands and nodded to each other with smiles. Obviously both parties are happy. 100 million. I wish you success in your next exam. Roy patted Hisoka on the shoulder enthusiastically. Hisoka grinned, his eyes were curved into two crescents, and his eyes were shining. Very happy, he took out his mobile phone to transfer money on the spot. Then he waved to Roy with his back and said, nah, just like a real fan, coming for the group photo, and going for the group photo. So good to scare Gon, Kurapika, Leorio, and all the fans who are really related to Roy. What? I thought he was going to attack Teacher Tiano. After working for a long time, I really came here to take a group photo. Tisk. As expected of Mr. Dao, even a pervert like Hisoka can conquer. I really want to cry to death. Oh ho ho, it seems that there are a lot of idiots in this episode. Hey, old man, let me share the day. The first meeting between Roy and Hisoka is playing on the TV. Hunter Association President's office. Netero glanced at a certain Zoldyck family who was in his office, eating his potato chips, lying on his sofa, watching his TV, and ordering his bean meal man. The corners of the little old man's eyes twitched, and the crow's feet deepened again. Sigh. Young people nowadays are so ignorant, it's really shameless to grab potato chips from an old man. Maha lay on Netero's sofa and poured all the potato chips into his mouth. Obviously his mouth was swollen into a ball. He still didn't give one piece to Netero and finally gave him the prison bag. Hey, there's still some dregs left, you can still feel the taste after licking it. The old man does not eat the food that comes from you. I will lick you. Netero stared at Maha with a dark face. Aren't you unable to tell? When I made the phone call, I remember that someone was very arrogant. Why did the hunter run over just after the test? Hey, how do you know the suffering of an empty nest, old man? Maha turned over comfortably, beckoned for the bean-faced man to come over and beat his back, glanced at Roy in the picture, and sighed that the grandson was not there for the first time one day. Miss him. Empty nest. Hey, Netero stroked his beard and smiled. The family is dead, right? Gino Silva is not your seed? Oh, if you want a grandson, just say so, I can understand. You understand what the hell? You don't have a grandson. Maha urged the bean-faced man to work harder, glared at Netero and said, look, my grandson was bullied when he came to you. My old man's heart hurts. Well, let me say the number, 10 billion. I'll just pretend it didn't happen that you bullied my grandson. Netero. Bean noodle man, dog days, crazy about money. How dare you, Maha, to think of ripping off the head of my hunter association. HMPH, it's good, the old man's eyesight is blurry, I didn't expect it to be so serious. Netero said quietly, the eyes are bad, you can dig them out. The grandson of your family broke the wrists of people, so I don't need to say who is bullying whom in this kind of thing. What's broken? I didn't see it. Maha curled his lips. He insisted on bullying my grandson. My grandson is so honest. Isn't it normal for him to use a little more force accidentally? On the TV, the screen turns. With his back to Roy, Hisoka walked towards the Ilfan. His body began to tremble uncontrollably. I'm going crazy. I'm going crazy. I really can't stand it. Me, your brother is simply amazing. He is even more delicious than you. Hisoka muttered. Looking down at his right hand, he managed to get in front of Ilmi. With a flick of the left hand, a thin paper-like film peeled off where no one could see, revealing his drooping right-hand door. Frivolous illusion. What a successful magician wants as drama, playing with fiction and reality in applause. People will never guess what he thinks and what he will do in the next second. Even if the wrist is broken, it can't make people see the real law abiding behind the scenes. This is the basic practice that a qualified magician should have. Of course. Hisoka snorted, the smile on his face disappeared, and even Shen's love for Ye fans was lost by 10%. Oh you are so hard, you can't wait to be eaten by me, Ilfan. Hisoka stared at Yermi, watching him use the nail to roughly reset his wrist, twitching and already thinking about how to deal with him. Oh, this is your punishment for losing. Yermi pulled out the last pin, and said with a blank expression, how? You who can't even clean up a piece of trash, how did you have the face to come back? Wife, you have changed. Bah. There is something wrong with Ilmini. Hisoka looked suspiciously at Ilmi, as if he had discovered some terrible secret, and smiled. Hey, you care about that blind brother of yours? I warn you, I only have Kahlua in my heart. Ilmi rolled her lifeless fish eyes and asked, is this the same clown I knew? Why, my blind brother makes you very concerned. Don't care. He's just awesome. Hisoka licked his lips, squinted at Roy, and couldn't help but want to go crazy again. I mean, give a comment. Your blind brother, at least. A plus. Oh. Il was stunned. He didn't expect Hisoka to give such a high evaluation. With a smiling face, full of nails, he glanced at Roy, quite surprised. I remember Crollo as A. Roy's evaluation is still higher than Crollo? Il fans were stunned. Suddenly remembered that Silva called him specially. It seemed that he didn't specifically explain that he wanted to protect Kahlua, but was referring to Roy. Yes, Crollo, your younger brother is A+, the president is. Oh ho, I have another fruit tree in my orchard, Sabarasi. Hisoka lowered his head, that perverted smile reaching to the base of the ear, covered by the shadow, looked particularly terrifying. Uncle, that person seems to be still watching us. Gon noticed the gazes of Hisoka and Ilfans just now, and quietly reminded Roy. Kuer, who had just finished taking photos with Roy, also noticed Hisoka, and the Yie fan who turned into Gitaraker, and said with a serious look, "You are the last batch to arrive, and you don't know the situation yet." That fellow Tonpa is right. Hisoka and that weirdo with nails all over his face must stay away. And, besides the two of them, there are still many masters here who need to be vigilant. Indeed, none of the people who can enter this venue is half-baked, far beyond what those rookies on the Sea God can compare. Gon, Kurapika, and Leorio all pricked up their ears, listening to Kuer, a senior, spread some expert information. For example, number 103, the Indian guy, who wears an Arabian hat, dresses up as a sheik, holds a pipe, and specializes in playing with snakes. 197, 198, 199, triplets with hats of different colors on their heads. Number 246, a strange guy with blue hair and blue eyes, a bulging big yellow hat, which seems to have a lot of bugs buzzing around. And the bald guy who exploded that he was enduring it when he met everyone, and became a hunter just to find the fantasy scroll. And .53, 225, 384. There are not too many masters. Those who listen to it are tinnitus and dizzy. Until the end, when he finally finished speaking, Bao Kuer's mouth was dry, and suddenly he heard Gon staring at his innocent eyes, looking at him and saying, "Also, you forgot Uncle." Gon said seriously, "You have mentioned so many people, but they are not as good as Uncle." Bang Kuer was stunned, looked at the serious eyes of Gon, Kurapika, and Leorio, secretly glanced at Roy, smiled and said nothing. "Mr. Tianwei," I burst into tears and admitted that he is good at drawing manga, he is my idol. But in terms of strength, I have never heard of him showing any great power, or having any brilliant record. As for the handshake with Hisoka just now, it means that the other party didn't take it seriously, otherwise the result would be hard to say. Ding-a-ling-ling, at this moment, a piercing bell sounded suddenly in the venue. The metal hidden compartment above the tunnel opened, and a person floated down from above. He was wearing a suit, a tie, leather shoes, a head of grandma's gray hair, and 2 mustaches. He successfully covered his mouth and held a strange bird in his hand. The bell came from the mouth of the strange bird, which was very magical. Registration time ends here. Hunter test officially starts now. Saw C, the examiner in this field, made his official debut, solemnly announcing that the 287th Hunter test has begun. Gudong, it's finally about to start. No, I'm starting to get nervous. Gon, Kurapika, Leorio, and many other candidates all began to get nervous with more or less. Only a few people, such as Hisoka, Ilmi, and Satsu as the examiner, did not show any nervousness. Ton. Roy opened the wine gourd and took a sip of wine, watching the fans leave one by one, officially entering the exam state. Inadvertently glanced at Sachi. Saw C, who was dressed as a gentleman, shuddered inexplicably, and turned his head to meet Roy's blind eyes that were spinning around, and his eyes narrowed for a while. Is this Roy Zoldyck? But what a sharp look. That's right. The other party is obviously blind, but Sachi really felt the substantive gaze. Hard-edged. Interesting, I'm afraid this exam will not be so peaceful. Sachi took his gaze back calmly, and glanced at Hisoka and Gitaraker at the side. Set your mind at ease. Turn around and walk down the tunnel. While walking, he reminded the candidates with a blank expression. Before the exam starts, I still need to confirm. The Hunter test is not a play, and the content of the assessment is very difficult. As long as you lack a little luck and courage, you may be injured or even die. So, if you still want to participate, please come with me. If you don't want to participate, the elevator is behind you, and you can exit by yourself. Exit. Are you kidding me? It's not easy to come here. Which one has not gone through untold hardships? The storm of the Poseidon. The weird questions in the quiz town. The troubles of the vicious fox family. Although the levels experienced by each candidate are different, it still makes one's scalp tingle when thinking about it. But telling to go back now, wouldn't all the previous grievances be in vain? Step. 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 The sound of dense footsteps gradually sounded, all the staff followed, and no one quit. Sachs seemed to have expected it, secretly said, a total of 405 people? Gouging out some unlucky guy whose arm was cut off by Hisoka. I hope there will be a few good seedlings in this issue. Saw C threw off his arms, and like a robot with stiff limbs, he advanced ahead, walked at the forefront of the team, and disappeared into the depths of the tunnel in the blink of an eye. Seeing this, Gon stretched his legs and feet, carried the fishing rod, looked at Roy excitedly and said, "Uncle, let's go too." Beside him, Kurapika and Leorio were eager to try, and they were also looking at him. At some point, Roy seemed to have become the backbone of this four-person team. Fate is somewhat strange. But, walking? Isn't it silly not to ride a horse? Roy smiled gently at the three of them. "You guys go first, I'll go over after I've fed the horse." Ma Gon, Kurapika, and Leorio looked at each other and looked at each other. "The horse that Uncle Mr. Tianwei said must be a horse, right?" Leorio coughed dryly and reminded Roy. "Mr. Tianwei, that guy Matthew is not here, he collapsed in the jungle in front of the queue and a town. Or it was you who broke the ride," Leorio silently added in his heart. Roy waved his hand. "No problem, that horse is no good, not as strong as my white horse." As he spoke, Roy stretched out his hand, as if something was flying towards the advancing crowd. With a sound of plop, he fell down at the feet of several people. Gon, Kurapika, Leorio. I was taken aback, and when I looked closely, they all turned into bean eyes. I saw that mass of things, with sound limbs, nose, eyes. All 5 features, and it looks a little like Roy. God TM White Horse? Uncle, Mr. Tianwei, isn't this TM your younger brother? Still dear. Dog day Roy, let me go. Kahlua was taken away by Roy's armed sexual thread, and fell into a dog's shit. Her white hair was bared like a horse's mane, so beautiful. No, are you okay? They are all the same age, are cherish each other. Good gay friends are destined to meet each other in the long river of fate. Gon reacted and reached out to help Kahlua up. The white-haired and smelly brother didn't accept his affection at all. He slapped his hand away, raised his foot and kicked Roy. This kick is mixed with Kahlua's anger for the next 30 years, and it's extremely fierce, but unfortunately, it's useless. As soon as the person flew up, Roy slapped his head and pressed it back forcefully. It's a good horse. Strong-tempered, strong enough. My stupid Ududu, brother, I am very disappointed in you. Give you 2 choices, carry me or carry me, you choose yourself. Roy let Kahlua do everything, try everything, his big hands are as moved as iron pincers. But, are these 2 options? Gon, Kurapika, Leorio. Looking at Kahlua sympathetically, Tisk, this brother is really miserable. I choose to kill you. Kahlua glared at Roy angrily, very unwilling, even more unconvinced. But a guy who knows how to avoid you when you owe money. Giving you a choice is already the greatest kindness of me as an older brother. Roy moved his lips, looked at Kahlua and said, just because. Kahlua's body froze, her little hands clenched and then loosened, and then clenched and then let go. After going back and forth several times, she finally took a deep breath, took out the skateboard and stepped on it. Come up. He snorted coldly and turned his back to listen. That's plausible, the smile reappeared on Roy's face. The blind man raised his foot, stepped on Kahlua's shoulder, picked up the wine gourd and took a sip of wine, and pointed at the front of 600. Stand. Kahlua was about to be crushed with one bite, wishing to shake his shoulders and throw this pissed-off guy out, but he was justified and deterred by force. Even if Kahlua refused to accept it, he could only swallow his grievances, put his foot on the skateboard, and carried Roy towards the large army in front of him. Let's go too. Gon, Kurapika, and Leorio looked at Kahlua's leaving back with pity, shivered, and hurriedly followed. Tap tat tat. The footsteps became more and more urgent. Under the leadership of Saw C, the first level of assessment officially began. Crunch. With a crisp sound, Gitaracker, who was running forward with the flow of people, suddenly stopped, and pulled out a rotten tooth that was crushed hard. What's wrong? Hisoka turned his head to look at Yi or me. Il watched Roy ride his favorite brother like a horse, and couldn't control his murderous intent, so he stuck out a few mental vats. He's mine. Mine. You dare to ride my horse, who told you to? Hisoka, you know? I really want to kill someone right now. Really. Oh ho ho ho, if it's Roy who you're going to kill. I warn you, that's my prey. Hisoka showed his murderous aura without hesitation. There seemed to be a cold wind blowing around, and the frozen people shivered. What are these 2 lunatics doing again? The passing examinees were afraid to avoid them and hid far away. It didn't take long before Ilmi and Hisoka were left in a stalemate. Oh, okay, I won't kill him, you come. Yermi took a deep breath, suppressed the strong killing intent deep in his heart, turned his back to Hisoka, and left with a smile. Oh ho ho ho, My premise is not to kill him, the rest is up to you. Elmi paused, understood. Then he quickened his pace, and chased after the large army in front of him. I won't be able to see his favorite Kahlua soon. Let me think about what to do. The nail inserted into the face swayed slightly with the shaking of the body. Hisoka silently watched Ilmi leave, stretched out his arms to hug himself. Ah. Sabarasi. Why don't we just kill them both? I can't take it anymore. Driven by the desire to kill, the magician frantically wandered between sanity and loss of control. He twisted his body in a strange posture and chased after him. This scene happened to be captured by a miniature camera hidden above the corridor, and it was transmitted to the president's office. Oh ho ho ho, it was so exciting at the beginning, the old man's waiting was not in vain. Netero took a sip of the tea made by the peanut man, and he felt better after being spoiled by some bad old man. President, do you think you want to send someone to move him out? The bean-faced man whispered to Netero, carefully turning his eyes from the corner of his eyes. Maha, who was sleeping soundly on Netero's sofa, heard the sound of the other party's snoring. Like Lei, the noisy people have big heads. Ah, Netero, your boy's way of controlling is not good. Speak ill of the guests in front of the guests, no wonder your hunter association has not been able to recruit a decent talent for 3 years. At this time, Maha suddenly turned over and glared at the bean-faced man. Oh my god, the bean-faced man was taken aback, so he didn't get pregnant by this look. Cold sweat, wow, came down. HMPH, are you a guest? Netero patted the Domian man on the shoulder, signaling him not to be nervous, curled his lips and said, an uninvited guest is at best a bad guest. Wipe off your old eyeballs and see, your grandson is being bullied. What nonsense are you talking about? Maha didn't even blink his eyelids, stretched his feet on the sofa head, and said with a sneer, just relying on these crooked melons and dates, trying to bully my grandson, go back to the mother's womb to practice, let's talk about it in 100 years. Old man. Isn't that Kahlua kid your grandson? There was a sneer in the corner of Netero's mouth. Flesh and blood, it seems that your Zoldyck family is no better than my hunter association. What Kahlua? I don't know. Maha yawned. I have only one grandson, Roy. Well. Just him. A black line appeared on Netero's forehead, and his nose was almost crooked. But he saw what is called a rascal. My grandchildren don't recognize it. I can only say that it is the Zoldyck family, so cold-blooded. That's right. Netero slapped his forehead. You see, I'm so confused. Kahlua as my grandson, I forgot. I'll quickly change the child's last name to Kahlua Isaac. Nonsense. Maha gave Netero a sideways glance. Show me the evidence. Looks are the evidence. Netero said confidently. He has white hair, and the old man also has white hair. You're an old bastard. You're still bald. What's the matter, are you shaking and practicing? Practice, practice. Don't, the Domian man yelled, stop making trouble. Squeak. The office was immediately pressed the mute button, and fell into a weird silence. Netero and Mahaki shut their mouths and looked at Domian. Domian's legs softened, and he sat down directly. Smi Masai. Netero and Maha looked at each other and laughed. The two old children who add up to a few hundred years old can be regarded as having enough mouth cravings, and each held a cup of tea and drank it. Hey, Kahlua is a good kid. Didn't you like him before? Why has it changed recently? Netero looked deeply at this one of the few old friends of his, and expressed his doubts. Isn't it because of Roy? Maha put the teacup on the coffee table, fixed his eyes on the TV. Seeing the blind man riding on his younger brother, twisting and turning, he said quietly, maybe if you don't believe me, it won't be long. I will not be this kid's opponent, he's the real jewel in our Zoldyck family. A mouthful of tea got stuck in his throat, and he couldn't get it out. Netero was stunned, looking at Maha. It's really rare for an old friend to look serious and stop joking around. Oh ho 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 ho, I can't. Netero raised his eyebrows. Maha said seriously, as for, you can see it when you look down. Then I'll just wait and see. Netero squinted his eyes and locked his eyes on the TV. In the picture, the nailman named Gitteracker pushed through the crowd, overtook candidates one after another, like a cheetah, and quickly moved towards Roy and Kahlua. Damn it, his speed is really fast. Leorio hangs behind, gasping for breath with his mouth open. He saw Gitteracker with a glance, looked at his swift speed, and left envious saliva. Hey, if only I had his physical fitness. Don't talk, save energy. Kurapika reminded Leorio. It's better to envy teacher Tianwei than to envy him. That's what makes people feel at ease. Kurapika looked forward enviously. Roy lazily stood on Kilua's shoulder, opening the wine gourd from time to time, taking 2 sips of wine. Unspeakably relaxed and comfortable. Of course, it would be even more beautiful if his good brother didn't come to harass him. Whoosh, like a sharp arrow, Yurmi shuttled among the gaps of many candidates, causing quite a commotion. What a speed. Number 301, the weirdo who stayed with Hisoka. What was his name? Gitaracker tilde operator. Many candidates who were interested recognized him and avoided him one after another, making way for him. People are naturally afraid of the unknown, and the incarnation of Gitaracker, in the eyes of many people, is this kind of fear of the unknown, not to mention the crazy magician Hisoka who is following behind him. Oh ho ho ho, what does Mini want to do? I really want to know. Will I insist on killing him? What should I do then? Wow, so exciting, I can't think about it. The devil's posture appeared. Hisoka leaned over and followed Ilmi, sliding almost close to the ground, with his palms and arms bent at a weird 90 degrees, muttering something in his mouth all the time. His smile became more and more perverted, all excitement and desire, killing hormone bursting. Tisk. It's really unsightly for the fruit farmer to change his state. Roy was knowledgeable, and he had already sensed Ilmi and Hisoka who were rushing towards him. Looking at the state of these two people, the word ecstasy is not enough to describe them. They really deserve to be a family who love each other. The husband and wife will accompany each other forever. It's a pity that I just don't know who is on top when I sleep at night. Damn. Why did those two perverts come towards us? Leorio glanced back, his soul flew out of fright, and he ran forward with all his might. Damn. He provoked someone, thought that the other party was going to rush to the front, but who knew that he would come straight after him, which is too bad luck. It's not because you can't do it. Kurapika looked solemn, and quietly glanced at Roy. The person most likely looking for was not him, but the one in front. Who can't do it? Leorio was angry, his man's dignity came up, he felt humiliated, he flatteringly grabbed Kurapika. Give me a hand, I admit, I really can't do it. Kurapika. Don't come here, seeing Leorio's piercing smile makes me sick. Damn it, isn't Gakutao? I am not your horse. Hold on, we'll be there soon. Leorio. I stick to a hammer, burn my butt, you know. There are 2 crazy dogs behind me, I'm not looking for you. Kurapika saw through Leorio's panic at a glance, and said in a deep voice, killing you a piece of trash will only delay time. Also risk being disqualified from the exam. The other party is not that stupid, Leorio. Although I was insulted, it seems, there is some truth. It seems that in order to verify Kurapika's guess, 3 pins whizzed past the heads of Leorio and Kurapika, heading straight for Roy. Uncle, it's dangerous, Gon's ears moved and he heard the wind. However, he didn't need to remind him, if he was slow enough to make him aware of the danger, it meant that Nyan nail was not aimed at people at all. Sure enough, I heard 3 soft beeps, do, do, do. As if calculated in advance, Nyan ding past Roy and nailed to the ground in front of him, blocking his way. Woo. Roy tightened the rein, and signaled Kahlua to stop. Squinting to look at Gitaracker, take a step forward and leap forward. Unexpressively pushed aside the wine gourd, took a sip of fruit wine. What do you mean? You are also my fan. Yi didn't answer, his eyes fixed on Kilua's body, seeing hot sweat on his forehead, he felt very distressed. Please take your feet off the shoulders of my beloved brother. Gitaracker pointed to Kahlua, then pointed to himself, because he couldn't speak because he wanted to nail his face. People don't understand what he means. Hey, you can't talk? Gon looked at Ilmi warily. Kurapika arrived at this time with the help of the half-dead Leorio, and quietly leaned against Roy's side. Suddenly, I heard Hisoka's familiar perverted laughter from behind. Ah, I understand. Oh ho ho ho, Gitaracker, it really is you. Hula. A gust of wind blew, and Hisoka appeared in front of everyone, staring at Roy with eager eyes that could almost turn into reality, and said, Mr. Tianwei, my friend means that he will replace the kid under you. The tacit understanding between the husband and wife surged up. As soon as Hisoka finished speaking, Gitaracker squatted down with his back to Roy, and reached out and patted himself on the shoulder. This action directly made a group of people look stupid. Gon, Kurapika, Leorio all turned into bean eyes. Even if you think about it, you won't think of. Are there still people rushing to become horses these days? I rely on, cheap or not cheap. Not cheap at all. Kahlua was stunned for a moment, almost bursting into tears. This big brother is a good person. I swear you will be my blood brother from now on. Who knows what it's like to be a horse? I'd rather be whipped and shocked at home every day than be another day. Oh, there was a sneer on the corner of Roy's mouth, but he never believed that he, the good brother, who had been at odds with him since he was a child, would be so kind. Maybe it's because of Kahlua. He made him do this. Hey, it's really hard for him. Roy saw through the thoughts of Ye fans, and said with a half smile, I don't have the habit of riding strange horses. Gitaracker squinted his eyes, and the nails on his face trembled, extremely weird. He seemed to expect that Roy would refuse. Glancing at Hisoka, he held out 3 fingers to Roy. Hisoka understood, licked his lips, tried his best not to go crazy, his eyes turned into crescent moons and smiled, 300 million. He is willing to pay 300 million to be your horse. Huh? This is the ceiling of the criminal world, right? Pay as a cow. What do you do your best and die after death? Damn, is this man with nails out of his mind? Gone. Kurapika and Leorio looked at the nails on the face of Ilmi, and suspected that there must be a nail that was not stuck properly, and accidentally stuck it in the brain, otherwise. I can't understand what he said at all. Anti-humanity, what is the purpose of the operation? Even Kahlua himself was a little confused, feeling that the other party did a little too much. But apart from Yi and Hisoka, Roy also knew in his heart that what the other party did was not exaggerated. Because this is Yearfan, an ultimate brother-in-law, even in order to live in Killua's heart forever, he does not hesitate to hope that the other party will use Nahia's ability to kill him. Such a person lives only for 2 words, Kahlua. Naturally he can't see him being wronged a bit. Tisk. What a touching brotherhood. If I don't agree, will it appear that I am a brother who is very unreasonable? Hey, I almost forgot, I'm also his younger brother. Roy smiled coldly, and stretched out 5 fingers to Ye fans. 500 million, I'll give you a chance to be a horse. Deal. Oh ho ho ho, I agree for my friend, Hisoka excitedly and crazily said to the ill fans. If you don't want to pay, I will pay for you. Hiss. Look at this arrogance, he is indeed a big dog, a man who owns a private jet. I don't need you. Ye fan brushed aside Hisoka's perverted face, without saying a word, took out his mobile phone on the spot, and directly transferred 500 million to Roy's account. As the eldest brother of the Zoldyck family, it has become a habit to kill people and take orders. Naturally, he has a lot of commissions, and his pride is no less than that of Hisoka. Drip. Reminder. Your account ending in 7086 has transferred a sum of 500 million ringgits in cash. Please check. The notification sounded on the mobile phone, and all the people present salivated enviously. Especially Leorio is the most exaggerated, this guy has all the blood all over the place. Watching other people make money is worse than killing him. Especially Roy's 500 million is a joke. It's easy to say nothing, if you don't want it, just force it. When will something like this happen to me, Leorio? Leorio thought sourly, the only difference between himself and Mr. Tianwei is no horses, and this horse. Leorio subconsciously looked at Kurapika. The blonde boy shuddered inexplicably, turned his head, and met Leorio's fiery eyes. Thank you for being disgusted. Shoo. After receiving the money, Roy hooked his finger, retracted the armed color thread, and lifted the seal of Kahlua. The white-haired stinky brother stepped on the skateboard, rushed forward with a swish, and disappeared in an instant. It's a pity that I lost a good horse. I have no choice but to change to another horse. Roy's figure flashed, and he appeared directly on Yermi's shoulder. A horsewhip woven from the armed color thread condensed in his hand, and he slammed into the air. Crack. Shelf. Yermi, whose pseudonym was Gitaracker, had a gleam of cold light flashed in the eyes of the dead fish, swung his arms, and ran forward. Ah, Sabarasi. Ilfan, your appearance is really too charming. The feeling of being stepped on by someone must be very cool. Hisoka licked his lips, shook his head, and followed. There was only the Duduyan trio left in place. You look at me, I look at you, looking at each other. I have learned a lot. The horse that is delivered to my door must be ridden. So, Kurapika, I don't ask you to be a cow and a horse for me, and take me to the head office for a while? Leorio licked his face and moved closer to Kurapika, but the blonde boy slapped him and rejected him. Be silly, I'm not your father. Gone, let's go. Kurapika called gone, and ran away quickly. An angry Leorio stomped his feet while holding his briefcase. Damn it, I don't want your money, why are you running? Oh, wait for me, I really can't do it. The sound of gasping for breath came from behind. Roy stepped on Yi or me, picked up the wine gourd and took a sip of wine, suddenly felt the soles of his feet hurt, and a touch of indifference emerged from the corner of his mouth. I knew I didn't hold my fart well and wanted to pin my feet. You deserve to be my good brother. Relying on the tyrannical and domineering look, Roy easily saw the small movements of me. The opponent used his shoulders as a springboard, gathered the nails, aimed at the soles of his feet and stabbed them hard. It really didn't leave any hands behind. That being the case, block of iron. Agitation pours into the feet, tensing the muscles, making them hard as steel. Then put a layer of domineering armed color on the soles of the feet, and you will hear a few crisp sounds of ding, ding. All the nails piercing the soles of Roy's feet hit a nail, broke on the spot, and fell down with a crackling. Huh. Yi or me's eyes froze for a moment. He lowered his head and took a look, and the nails that had been bent out of shape fell on the ground, and his complexion couldn't help but darken. His best skill hit a wall? It's been a long time since you've seen good brother, as Dad said. Is he growing up? Yi or me smiled coldly, not believing this evil, and shook his shoulders back violently again. He wanted to get rid of Roy with great strength, but he never thought that Roy was sticking to his body like a piece of brown sugar. Even though he shook his shoulder blades apart, he couldn't get rid of Roy. Down. This clingy feeling is not too familiar. Scalable love? Il looked subconsciously at Hisoka beside him. The magician was obviously stunned for a moment. His smile disappeared, and then bloomed, perverted to the extreme. Oh ho ho ho. No oh, as a magician, he would never expose his techniques to others. Hisoka is very sure that he has never shown his reading ability in front of Roy, so there is only one possibility. The so-called sticky does not necessarily mean sticky, and it may also be sewed by thoughts.